Hey, welcome to another week of All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. So we are here another week. There's a lot of stuff going on, but summer's about to be here. We're feeling good, and we have a lot of people who are coming on tonight. It's going to be a full house. So on our conversations about from activists to politicians and musicians, here's what's up tonight. At 6 o'clock tonight, we have Pierre from the New Jersey Poor People's Campaign, and he's talking about the rally in D.C. that's going to be on June 18th. And I know that when we get to this, Zayed's going to give us some real good stuff on the Poor People's Campaign, what it is, why it's important, and the people we know who are leading that, who are also going to be in Newark. Because Reverend Barber is going to be in Newark this weekend, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. So we could talk about that. We could talk about who he is and how he's known, and that would be good. At 6:30, we have JeanPierre Brutus on, and we got a lot of Pierres on tonight. It's good. We've got JeanPierre Brutus on from the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, and he'll be talking about reparations, right?
Yes, sir.
We're talking about reparations in the Garden State, or as Zayed would always say, reparations in the Soprano State. At 7, we're going to have Newark Deputy Mayor Rahaman on with education activist Kaleena Berryman, and they're going to be talking about skilled trades, new schools that are being built within the city, and some of the controversies that are surrounding that. I had a lot of conversations this week, and it's going to be a real interesting conversation about types of education, trade, and what some of the anxieties are to like having trade schools. It was real interesting conversations all week. I think it's a wonderful thing, but I was really interested in hearing what some people's anxieties were. 7:30, we have DJ Rhino and the State of Hip Hop. Hakim Green is going to be our guest. We're going to be talking about his new album, and that's going to be a lot of fun. We always love when Hakim Green comes on. We want to have him on all the time. He's an amazing talent. He's an ambassador for hip hop for the city of Newark, and we appreciate him a lot. I know that 24 Hours of Truth is coming up too, so we're going to ask him about that as well.
Yes.
And at 8 o'clock, we have the Payne Report with the Honorable Congressman Donald Payne, who will be on at 8. So that's our lineup for tonight. So what's going on, Zayed? What's going on?
Well, let me just say this as we're waiting for Kevin to jump on. All Politics of Local are also an important co-sponsor for the upcoming 50th anniversary convention of what was the National Black Political Convention back in Gary, Indiana in 1972. It was a high point for what we now know as the Black Power movement, or the Black Liberation movement, when the newly found right to vote on the fresh heels of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 saw black folks from all over the country come together in Gary, Indiana, to forge an agenda for how to leverage that vote for the first time in a long time, meaning since the Reconstruction era of the 1860s and the early 1870s. It was an epic moment in struggle, and it's going to happen in Newark because of its Newark history. This Newark history is the fact that this was something that was one of the principal organizers was none other than the Imamu, the immortal Amiri Baraka. Right, Amiri had a national organization at the time called the Congress of African Peoples, and Amiri made Newark one of the epicenters.
Amiri Baraka had a lot of organizations, didn't he?
People do not realize
a lot of organizations.
There's this, folks your age and down don't understand really just how important his legacy as an organizer is. Right, and quite frankly, a lot of folks from my generation don't appreciate it that much, and it's because it's been the part that's been underplayed. Same happened with Malcolm. So the organizing is underplayed, and to be sure, it was him picking up Malcolm's line, or Malcolm's notion of the ballad of the bullet, and making Black Power real. Newark was one of the international epicenters for what Black Power looked like during those days. So that's really important. I want everybody to look forward to that, August 4th through August 7th. Please register, right? It doesn't cost anything but some time and some courage.
Wait, how much does it cost to register?
It costs nothing but some time and courage. It's free.
I thought it's not expensive.
It's not expensive. Not
it's
for
free?
the people.
See, that's the problem. If they made it expensive, people would be like, I gotta be there. You make it so all the people can be there. Be like, all the people are there. All the people are there. Right? So, but no, it's gonna be. I hear it's gonna be really good. I heard a lot of people are gonna be there, and they're gonna be doing things that we have been talking about for a long time. Those of you,
long time.
Right. Like, hey, Black people need to get together and come and solve solutions to our problems. Black people need to come together. And I think that, there are a lot of Black people coming together in Newark in August.
The thing about this particular, why it's so important, and Miri's son, Mayor Rasbaraka, is one of the principal conveners and hosts of this particular gathering. It's because this is one of the most cutting edge and critical crossroads years of the ballot we have seen since 1964, when we were on the eve of the Voting Rights Act. Only because we find ourselves in this country now when one of the most backwards sectors are not only organized, they just left the White House and didn't want to leave the White House even after they lost the election. Right? They're armed, they're organized, and they're dangerous. And they have been using their control and access of state power and the ballot to come up with all kinds of tricks and machinations that are legal to undermine and limit and undo Black and brown people's access to the ballot. So they can actually get a stronghold on state power from the White House on down for as long as they possibly can. And if we look at things that just happened in Buffalo, right? Please do not make the mistake of looking at that as some kind of isolated incident, some kind of lone wolf doing what he did. He was a part of a broad, growing, well-organized, extremely backwards right-wing tendency that is looking to do whatever they can get away with to try and hold back the forward motion of history. And if that means taking out some folks, they'll take out some folks. That means sacrificing themselves, as some are doing.
So you think that
it's happening?
So you think that when they're talking about the Great Replacement, they're trying to find solutions for that, right? Like do they really believe that white people are being replaced and therefore they have to do what they do?
They are obsessed with that, so much so they're willing to engage in all kinds of bizarre, backwards, and dangerous behavior. And it's not an isolated fringe. The most well-known articulator of this notion is Tucker Carlson, who's a star in media on Fox 5, right? And you're the last occupant of the White House, is all in on that, and so it's I'm old enough to actually can remember when there was a such thing as a liberal Republican.
Right.
Folks can crack up and not say something like that.
Former governor of New Jersey, Tom Kane, was one of them, right?
An old money Republican who believed in education as an opportunity for anybody to get out of a bad situation. He was an example of that, right? Once upon a time, we had a mayor in New York by the name of John Lindsay during the 1960s, a player, tall, pretty boy, liberal Republican mayor, right? That actually existed.
I remember
they don't exist.
I tripped people out by telling them that I voted Republican 3 times in my life. I don't remember the third one, but one of them was Tom Keene for governor, right? When the second time he ran. And he had done some really great stuff with education, raising teachers' pay. He did some really great things with welfare reform. Basically, people can go to college for basically free, right? He did a lot of really good stuff. And I'm like, all right, that's one Republican vote. And the other one, when I was in Connecticut, I voted against Lieberman for, I believe it was Lowell Weicker, who was a Republican in Connecticut. And the reason why I did is I looked at their campaign literature. And Lieberman, Senator Lieberman, famously, he ran on, I believe he ran with John McCain on his ticket, right? Or no, did he? That was him, right?
I can't remember, but there was just
no, not with John McCain, but he was close. He had endorsed, he endorsed John McCain, right? People thought he was going to be on the ticket, but he was with, I want to say when Gore ran, The other, I don't know, maybe I don't know, but but Lieberman was running to the right of the Republican. Like clearly, his campaign literature was like he doesn't believe in prayer in schools. I believe in prayer in schools. He doesn't believe, and I'm like, ooh, like, and I mean, I'm all for praying in schools and stuff, but normally it's like one of those dog whistle issues. They're gonna say it, and you're like, what? And it's like, oh, he's not tough enough on crime, right? Like, oh, you don't like black people? Oh, that's terrible, right? Like, because these are dog whistles, and he's sending out all the Republican dog whistles. I'm like, Dag Lieberman, and I had a conversation with some like, are you voting for that Democrat? Because the Republican is quite to the left. He's much closer to where we are than this Democrat over here. So I don't know,
Why? Black folks voted Republicans from Abraham Lincoln to John F. Kennedy. There was a beginning of a shift. Let me clarify that. There was a beginning of a shift to the Democratic Party with the advent of Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Right, the New Deal.
Right, but a lot of black folks from Lincoln right on up to Kennedy. Right.
Okay,
I'm a lot of black church. Is he coming in?
But I'm gonna say it for a second. Where my man Kevin Pierre, man, what's going on?
I don't know.
I want to hear about the Poor People's Campaign.
That's a big deal that's going on tomorrow and on the 18th.
What's going on? Let's start jumping right in because in terms of what the topic is, and our guest should jump in shortly.
Well, one of the last things that the great Dr. Martin Luther King was working on at the end of his life was the organizing and trying to convene a Poor People's Campaign. It was to be an occupation of the Capitol for call to put some things in place to get a handle on poverty. The war on poverty, as we knew it under then President Johnson, was being gutted and neutered by the real war that was going on in Vietnam, right? So there was so one of the three principal things that meant a lot to Dr. King at the end of his life was racism, militarism, and poverty. And he was trying to bring all sectors, all organized sectors that he could bring together of the poor in this country, of not just the urban poor, the rural poor, the black poor, the Latinx poor, and the white poor, and they were going to
rainbow poor.
And yeah, it was very rainbow-esque, right? And staying, all right? And it does not get the kind of attention that it does when folks look at what was going on with Dr. King at the end of his life. Most folks look at his stance against the Vietnam War, and that being the principal reason why he was taken out of it. But that Poor People's Campaign, they were nervous about that with his leadership. That
weren't they accusing him of being a communist?
They accused him of being some of everything, right? It actually happened in June of 1968 under Ralph Abernathy's leadership, and it had some moments, but it kind of lost its way and didn't maintain the edge and the attention that organizers hoped it would. But what they were talking about, with a guaranteed income and some of the things that they were talking about are as germane today as they were then. In recent years, two radical clergy, and I'm going to call them radical clergy, they probably wouldn't use that language themselves, right? Reverend William Barber and Reverend Liz Steele Harris got together to lift up this idea again of a Poor People's Campaign to address the question of poverty and some of the other issues that are related in terms of social justice, like the question of access to the ballot, like the question of police brutality. He has really made a name for himself in the South, but particularly in his North Carolina. With he did something called Moral Mondays, when he staged these what became very large rallies on Mondays, and out of that, came this idea of reviving in the way that they're trying to revive it, a Poor People's Campaign. to be sure, your own Lawrence Ham, the People's Organization for Progress, got the idea for their Justice Monday,
Mhm.
looking at what Reverend Barber was doing in North Carolina with his Moral Mondays. Now the Justice Monday never caught fire the way in large numbers, the way Moral Monday did it in North Carolina, but uh, the People's Organization for Progress was able to sustain that for a good. Let's see, we started in 2016. Obama was still in the White House, right on up until the COVID pandemic. So that was almost uh, 5 years, and it's been back and forth, off and on, since we've been back and forth with the challenges of the COVID pandemic. But that's where the idea came from for Justice Monday. It came from the Moral Mondays of the early beginnings of the Poor People's Campaign. Now tomorrow, uh,
So what's going on tomorrow?
tomorrow is like they did back in those days when they were trying to build up these national marches. They would take the stars of the march and move them around to different communities to build up support in those communities. So Reverend Barber and Reverend Theo Harris will actually be in Newark for a rally in anticipation of their national rally. The national rally is going to be on the 18th. They're going to be in Newark tomorrow uh, at 11 o'clock for an important piece that they are going to do. And that's what this young man was supposed to talk about. The Poor People's
So when
Campaign.
people are like,
Hmm?
so
Say
when
it again.
people like, I hear rallies, and some people when they hear rally, they're like, "Oh, what they rallying about? Why is rally important?" Right? What is this? Why is this rally important? What are they rallying for? Like, what is it? What is it that? What's the purpose?
It's much the same thing that we're talking about with the National Black Political Convention, right? This space that we're in this very year is very delicate. It can be very dangerous politically, depending on how it shakes out. And if it shakes out with the right wing taking power back, the way they've been carrying on, and with this very right wing Supreme Court in place, it could be the beginning of some really difficult days ahead. Using Dr. King's language when he was in Memphis before he left us, uh, and difficult in ways that uh, the generations behind us have not seen. I'm old enough to remember somehow difficult was in the 60s as we were in those crossroads moving into power, right? But you being taken out of power, that's another thing. So this whole the elections of this year are extremely important. Whether or not we lose the Congress, and we hardly getting anything done in Congress anyway, because the Senate is split almost down the middle, and you got two Democrats who want to act like Republicans to make the most backward sector of their base happy.
But
You know,
what's up with us? Like, are we getting better at voting? I mean, we got a lot of elections coming up. Everyone's going to be focusing on Georgia. Some people focused on Pennsylvania. They're focused on different states that if Republicans take control, they can control the state legislature and do some funky stuff, right? Uh, but do you notice that people not excited? Like is it just me, or
uh,
people like,
you know,
oh,
I
yeah,
have
I know
questions.
fascism is about to happen, but
Time will tell, right? I have questions about how aware and alert and engaged we are in the North. I see a lot of healthy engagement in the South. Folks we know have gone south and helped mobilize in terms of voter registration. My son, the general, and our sister Tamika Marley, they rolled down into the South together to help mobilize for Senator Warren. Now Senator Warren, and his seat is up for grabs,
right.
right? And
And
and, and
against Herschel Walker, really? Dag, come on, please, Georgia, please don't do this to us. We do not want to see Herschel Walker for 6 years. No, no,
I
no.
didn't want to see him become a Dallas Cowboy.
Wow, he was a cowboy. That explains a lot. That explains a lot.
but seriously, but more seriously,
I'm serious.
he's a black face.
Explains a lot.
Yeah, he's a black face
He cooning.
being put on a white supremacy and agenda,
Right.
like Clarence Thomas, whose wife, was all up in the organizing and the promoting of that January 6th white riot that you like to talk about. He should be kicked off the Supreme Court.
That's not gonna happen.
Not because he's raised, not because he's backwards, but because of that kind of engagement. He has no business in any of that.
That's gonna keep him on the court.
Out of here, right?
People are gonna love him on the court more.
Oh my God! But now he's one of the elder statesmen of the
absolutely. They'll love him. They'll love him even more.
They licking all over this nasty behind,
Wow.
But it has dangerous implications. If we got problems now with mass incarceration and the school to prison pipeline and all of that kind of stuff, that stuff is going to, get a whole nother boost with these crazy folks lodging in charge.
Yeah, but we're still probably not going to
vote.
Roe
v. Wade, we haven't done a show yet. And I'm trying to get some bad sisters on for this. We haven't done a show yet on what this whole thing with Roe v. Wade means. And they're coming for that. And who's taking the point? Alito, a backwards racist from right here in New Jersey, right? You wonder why I always call this thing the Soprano State. Alito is taking the point for putting that decision together to undo Roe v. Wade, right? So this stuff is this period that we're in is a dangerous period and requires us to be fully engaged, fully mobilized, and fully organized. So that's one of the inspirations for what's happening on June 18th and this weekend. But that's organically tied again to the question of poverty, right? The minimum. What's the minimum wage now? $7.25.
I don't know what the minimum wage is, but teachers just got a raise in the city of Newark. The starting salary for teachers now is $62,000 a year. 62.
It should have been that 10 years ago.
True, but it takes a pandemic and people leaving the teaching profession in droves. But you could come right out of college and make 62. Yeah. And even though inflation bit into that a little bit, right? But I mean, come on, it's still good money.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember.
So
when I started teaching, we would work for cookies. I mean, like this, it's actually good. They're doing a lot of really innovative stuff. Some of which we're going to talk about later in terms of trade schools.
That's looking forward to that.
So I think that's going to be great. But that raising the teacher salary to $62,000 a year in the city of Newark is going to get people looking twice. Everyone I tell that to, everybody turns their head like, what? 60? Maybe I like kids now. Maybe I'll teach a little kid, right? Teach them kids, right?
And we need folks to come into some of these career lines and stay in them.
Yeah, true. Don't be Teach for America.
Right?
Don't do the charter school thing.
We need
come in for 5 seconds.
In the police.
Right.
But real talk. Folks don't want to go into that stuff because they're saying,
well, I will say this: don't go into teaching for the money. Go into it for the right reasons.
You gotta love it.
You gotta love it. You gotta love what you do. If you don't love what you do, it's not gonna be good.
I ran into so many roadblocks trying to get in. I had to make other adjustments. I know how rewarding it can be for those who do it and do it for the love that it's about.
Absolutely.
But so the question of the question of poverty. As they're treating it not as a social problem, but as a moral problem. That it is something that a country that is as wealthy and as powerful as the United States. It's immoral for them to uphold an order of poverty that is oppressive, racist, and sexist, right? That just doesn't allow people to live. And it has the resources to allow people to live, and at the same time, it has multiple engagements that are not talked about in media that should be talked about militarily, that are taking a whole lot of so-called tax dollar monies, right, into all of that. This is very and much the way that Dr. King was trying to articulate those concerns with the war in Vietnam. Vietnam was just one war back in the 60s and the early 70s, right? This whole thing with Ukraine is just one war. You know, Africa under President Obama, right? The U.S. had 3 military bases in Africa. They now have over 80. Over 80, right? Who's paying for that? Why do we need all those folks in Africa and everybody's still hungry? Africa needs some other things, you know. So all these things are compromising and undermining the capacity for government to do the basic things in terms of human infrastructure, you know, to make a difference in people's lives. So they're calling it a moral march on Washington, right? To address the question of voting rights, poverty, and militarism, and it's gathering steam. He's done quite a few civil disobediences recently on the question of voting rights in Georgia, in North Carolina, and in Texas, and so I appreciate that. I haven't met either one of them. I don't have any history with either of them, and I'll see them for the first time with my own eyes tomorrow. I'm not sure if I can go down on the 18th, but it is important for folks to get down. They have chapters in different states throughout the country. Kevin was been representing for the New Jersey chapter when POP under Larry's leadership, under Demo's leadership, just did the Million Voter March a little while ago. That's when Kevin came to everybody as a part of that coalition to, say, look, we're getting ready to make this move nationally, and we want to have some buses going out of New Jersey. So he has all of that information, and I'm looking forward to him being on. Something must have happened with him, and I hope he's all right, and I hope I hear from him before the night's out. But the gathering itself, and we should get ready to bring in our next guest. And I'm sorry that we missed little brother. The gathering itself will be at the Lincoln Monument, at the Lincoln statue, at 11 noon tomorrow, and they'll have the information about their buses. And I think the buses out of Essex County are going out of Montclair, if I'm not mistaken. They'll have all that information there tomorrow. So it's a big day. There's a lot of anti-violent gatherings going on in Jersey tomorrow also. But this Poor People's Campaign is a genuine campaign. It's got 2 genuine leaders in the front of it. It's clergy and labor based, and that's a healthy coming together, right? And we've seen some healthy things with labor locally. The Amazon push for unionization in Staten Island. Those labor organizers came right out of Elizabeth, New Jersey, right? So there's some healthy things happening within the name of labor organizing that needs to be appreciated. So look forward to that tomorrow, right? Look forward to that tomorrow. 11 noon, Lincoln Monument, the local launch of the Poor People's Campaign in anticipation of the moral march on Washington that's going to happen on June 18th.
And necessary, right? Especially given all of the things that have been going on. Has it gotten any special type of steam in that way? Like from
folks
shootings?
Folks are coming to this thing from as far left as California. So it's going to have it's going to have a presence. It's going to have a presence. So we look forward to it. I don't know if I can get down there myself because my calendar is packed as it is before this blew up. But it's going to be a big deal. It's going to be a big deal. And there are a bunch of folks from Jersey going down. So I know that we got a bunch of folks on that Montclair bus already.
Okay, so we have our guest.
This is JeanPierre. Brutus is back.
Yes. Good
Jersey
evening.
Institute for Technology.
For social justice.
He's what did I say? Technology.
The Institute for Social Justice.
I went to school in Rutgers. NJIT was right across the street.
No worries.
Right?
So the Institute for Social Justice seems like it does a lot of work.
Yes, I think we do. We punch above our weight, and we try to do our best. We do our best, yeah.
And one of the things they got into, and it was unexpected, right? Like I never thought that an organization of lawyers as respectable and just good lawyers looking for social justice would do reparations, because reparations used to be like, I mean, you weren't dressed in a lawyer suit doing reparations, right? And I'm just asking, like, what's going on with reparations in New Jersey? Why is it why is it seems like it's gotten mainstream? And is it just me? Like, I don't know. Is it or not?
Well, let me see some things first, JeanPierre, because
Sure.
His question is loaded with some history that you don't have. All right. I go back with the reparations movement since the 80s. All right. So what's happening with reparations is what we have always been waiting for with reparations. The word is starting to finally get out, and people are on the other side are starting to see the light of day about the correctness of reparations. Right? It's been a long time coming. People don't realize how old the struggle for reparations is. If you go back to Belinda Sutton petitioning for reparations from her plantation masters in New England in the 1780s, or if you go back to General Sherman's General Order Number 15, the legal and doctrinal basis for the notion of land-based reparations, or if you look at the great Callie Hobbs, legendary organizer who went to jail as a consequence for organizing so well for reparations, leaving the 19th century, going into the 20th century, right? The struggle for reparations is a long intergenerational struggle. My generation was inspired by the great Queen Mother Moore, who was one of the stars of the National Convention back in Gary, talking about reparations, right? So reparations has been in the corners of our struggle.
I just remember the line from the movie.
Place.
She just kept saying, reparations, say it, baby, reparations.
This is about reparations. That's right. That's some of the best and most prized footage from the Gary Convention. In fact, Eyes on the Prize really lifted that up for her. And that's the best footage that we have with her. But Queen Mother Moore, and this is the 70s we were looking at her. She goes back to Mr. Garvey. She was died in a Will Garveyite in Louisiana back in the 1920s. So this is how long this whole thing goes. But now for the beginning, one of the things I would dare say that has happened as a consequence of the explosion of the drama and the trauma and the protest that has come out as a matter of the consequence of police brutality, high pointed with George Floyd, is that there are some white folks who are trying to figure out, what's wrong with this country that we live in, that this has become like the order of the day. Something is wrong. There's a whole lot of hurt that needs to be healed. And this restorative justice grandmother, right, is beginning to get looked at. Just a couple of days ago, the state of California took the step that we're trying to take in New Jersey, right? And now I'm getting ready to pitch it to this young man. Now, the state of California put together a task force on reparations, undertook a study that became a document that is over 400 pages, 13 chapters, suggesting on how that should look, given California's history with race, in the context of the country's broader history with race. So with that, we've got something going on in New Jersey that the Institute of Social Justice really tried to wrap its hands around, that is to try and get a bill passed to create a task force in New Jersey to study the question of reparations. Now son,
for the task force,
right? You can take it to the hoop.
All right, thank you so much for that wonderful historical background, that contextualization. Thank you for that segue about California. And I think it's important. I want to hit this right off the bat and note this, right? California introduced their bill for a reparations task force in February of 2021. In September of 2021, the governor signed the bill into legislation, right? 3 months prior to that, in November of 2019, New Jersey introduced their own reparations task force bill, right? The first state in the country to do so. And then here we are in June of 2022, still demanding that New Jersey pass a task force bill in support of studying reparations and studying history of slavery in New Jersey, and then providing recommendations. And California is now at the point of producing an interim report that is close to 500 pages, documenting, engaging with, and examining the history of slavery, both at the national level, but also its effects in California, right, along 12 different indices, indicating, and then also providing a set of policy proposals. California will provide in June of 2023 a final report. Now, earlier you talked about how we are just simply walking in the history or treading in the path that's been well worn by others, by other activists, other lawyers, other ordinary folk who've been engaging for this push for reparations. And as part of that, here in New Jersey, the Institute has led a Say the Word campaign, a racially diverse, multi-faith campaign called Say the Word for a particular reason, right? There are individuals in this state, powerful individuals, who are fearful of saying the word reparations. And we want to bring particular attention to that word reparations because we want to highlight the harms of slavery here in New Jersey. New Jersey was once known as a slave state of the North, called that by many historians. Why? Because it was deeply involved in the history of slavery as an institution here in New Jersey.
Hold on. Wait a second. New Jersey had slaves?
Yes, it did. We tend to think, I think generally the understanding, and I'm sure maybe, some of your listeners listening may have think that here in New Jersey, because it's a northern state, it was kind of distinct and different from the South, that slavery was particular to the South. But that's not the case. Slavery was throughout the United States. And in New Jersey, it started in the early 17th century, where New Jersey incentivized a system of slavery where white settling families were given 150 acres of land, and then an additional 150 acres of land for each enslaved person that they owned. All right. And then there was a series of black codes of slave codes, I should call them, that started in the 18th century, starting in 1704, which regulated and limited the life of enslaved people, including their ability to congregate after hours in groups, to limit their capacity to engage in possibly insurrection. Right. Also, New Jersey was the only state in the North to support the Federal Fugitive Slave Act, right? As did California, meaning those enslaved people who had escaped, who had self-emancipated and fled to New Jersey seeking freedom, they could be returned and enslaved back down to the South, right? New Jersey was the last state in the North to abolish slavery. It was the last state in the North to support the 13th Amendment, and it was only after its ratification, right? By 1830, of the enslaved population in the North, 2/3 of them resided in New Jersey. All right. And I want to make this clear. After slavery ended in New Jersey, it wasn't this period of, unburdened freedom for the formerly enslaved. It was a reconstitution of white supremacy by other means, poll taxes, Jim Crow, other forms that of white supremacy that we think of the South existed in New Jersey for a significant period of time. An early form of sharecropping called cottaging, and other forms of discrimination and white domination and undermining Black life. And I want to also point this out. When Black veterans during World War II, here from New Jersey and from New York, went to fight against fascism abroad, right? They went to fight for two things, what they called the double V, double victory: the fight against fascism abroad and the fight against fascism here, known as Jim Crow in the United States. Yet when they returned, they were denied the benefits of the GI Bill. Right? They were not. The GI Bill was administered through the states, even though it was a federal government program, and yet the states administered it. And of the, I believe, significant amount, I believe, of the 67,000 people who were eligible, the non-white people who were eligible for the GI Bill in New York and New Jersey, less than 100 of them received the benefits of the GI Bill.
Oh no, wait. So probably break this down, right? Because everyone talks about the GI Bill after World War II. GIs came back that the GI Bill was really responsible for the middle class. But what you're talking about is that, and we're not talking about southern states, we're talking about because states distributed the federal money, because the federal money went through the states, it heightened the level of discrimination. Like, explain.
That's exactly right? Particularly Southern legislators, in order to get the legislation passed, made sure that the federal legislation was states to allow for this type of discrimination at the state purposefully, and it fulfilled its intended purpose, which was to discriminate against Black veterans and other non-white veterans. And so you have a significantly low number of non-white veterans and Black veterans who were able to benefit from, as you pointed out, a program that essentially subsidized and created the middle class in the post-World War II moment. And this is not unique in the history of the U.S., right? After the New Deal, right, ostensibly useful programs were in such a way to exclude positions and institutions and occupations that were predominantly filled by Black people. And so the New Deal built into it was exclusionary and essentially racist, right? And it was not designed to address the concerns and the lived experiences of Black people.
Wait, you said the New Deal?
Yes, the New Deal.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt?
Yes, FDR is part of the sort of ability and connection for the New Deal to pass was to make concessions to Southern legislators who would not allow legislation to pass unless it was designed in such a way to exclude Black people from the legislation.
So in order for the New Deal to happen, they had a lot of old deal to it.
Exactly, right? This is part and parcel, and
they got the New Deal. We kept the same old deal.
The old deal. And what has happened is that you see that over and over again. You saw that with the Homestead Act in the 1860s, right? Giving out parcels of land, millions of acres of land to white settling families throughout the West, while excluding 40 acres and a mule to formerly enslaved people, to create this kind of wealth that has passed down. And here in New Jersey, we have one of the largest racial wealth gaps. I want your audience to hear this quite clearly.
Oh no! Wait! Stop! Are you going to give us the
get to the good part
wealth gap story? Oh my God! I hate when Ryan Hager comes on and talks about the racial wealth gap. I feel so poor. All right, man. You got it. It's news. You got to tell.
It's unfortunate. It's tough news, and I'm gonna give you some updated numbers.
So, are they getting better or worse?
They're getting worse.
No,
the gap is increasing. All right, the racial wealth gap is increasing. It's not closing here in New Jersey. So the median net wealth for white households in New Jersey is $322,500, and the median net wealth for Black families in New Jersey is $17,700. That's over $300,000. That's a massive gap, right? It's a huge gap. It's one of the largest in the country, if not the largest. And that has a particular history where we can trace it back to slavery in New Jersey.
Wow.
Part of it, we want to address this. If we want to address this and properly, we need to have a reparations task force to study the history of slavery, all the institutions that came afterwards, its aftermath, and the current policies that continue to reproduce the kinds of inequalities we see in New Jersey today.
Check this out, Jonathan. Now, you and I both have folks that we love in your up south town of Boston, right? In Boston, the ratio was something like 150,000 white folks to $8 for Black folks. $8. By the way, there's a push for a Boston task force also, right? And I'm trying to get some folks to come on and talk about that also. But yes, so this Jersey picture is a picture that can be placed in so many other places throughout the country by virtue of the systematic character of how our people were oppressed, not just during slavery, but after slavery as well.
But here's my question though, right? Like, and here's what I'm scared of, right? You're like, it needs to be studied. And if there's any type of technology that you kind of know that they use, like, oh, you're angry Negroes, you're angry, I got you. But before we could do anything, let's study it, right? And they get you all in the study, but they never have any plans on actually doing anything with it. It's like, is that a fear? Is that well, we're pushing for the study. I don't even know why. I don't know why white people don't just go like, yes, study it, study reparations, study it, go to school, get your PhD, talk to me.
Right, I agree. In a sense, why be so fearful of a study, right? Why is a fearful commission such as some things that people should be afraid of? Really, as you point out, you should not be fearful of a study, right? A study is not necessarily going to lead to policies, but what these task forces do, right, is provide a government-backed examination and study of the issue, and then also a set of recommendations. And so it's the first time we've seen that out of California for a government body of that level to issue a set of recommendations to address the problem. And you get the sense of the scope and the scale of what we're facing, right? And I think once you begin to do that, I think for some people, it may be overwhelming initially, right? And that's part of the fear. Also, there's a fear of the unknown, but also the fear of the scale and the scope. Well, once you study something, you begin to know what the issue is, what is you're facing, and then you begin to provide recommendations and policies. Then the real work begins of organizing, coming together to realize those policies, to realize those programs, those things that can address those harms, right? And that takes a lot of work. That's going to take a lot of effort. But here in New Jersey, you've got to take the first step of passing the task force legislation. And I want to point out to those listening, and I would like to invite everyone listening today to please come out on June 17th, Friday, June 17th. The Institute and the People's Organization for Progress, you're sponsoring and hosting a rally in support of reparations, justice, and democracy. And we'll be pushing for a reparations task force, same-day voter registration, closing youth prisons, improving policing. And it will be held in Newark. It will start at noon at the Lincoln Monument, or Lincoln Memorial. Then there'll be some speeches. There'll be a march. And at 1:30 at City Hall, there'll be some more speeches. And we'll be moving and creating energy and support for the Reparations Task Force. And also, if you want to find out more about the work that we're doing, you can go to njisj.org/say-the-word. And if you want to reach out to your legislator to let them know that you support this legislation, go to 400yearsnj.org. You can contact your legislator through that toolkit. You can email them, you can tweet them, and you can even call them to let them know you support this task force bill. Now, I also want to let your audience know there have been 11 localities so far in New Jersey that have passed resolutions in support of this task force bill, including Newark, but also Trenton and Jersey City and Mercer County and Essex County and Plainfield, right, amongst others, that have passed resolutions in their city councils in support, demonstrating that there's local support for this task force bill, right? And we can do this in New Jersey. Just like New Jersey was the last state in the North to abolish slavery, New Jersey can be the first state in the North to pass a reparations task force bill to study slavery and its effects, right? So New Jersey can be a leader, not just at this level, but for the nation, to show what can be done and how it can be done. And I would like New Jersey to be a leader in this regard, right? Before New Jersey was the last in the North, and I could be the first in the North, right? New Jersey, slavery was mainstream in New Jersey. Now reparations can be mainstream in New Jersey.
And let me say this, Jonathan, and I want folks to appreciate this. And this is to the tenor of your question, right? Folks do have a right to be cynical because this is, like I said, this is one of our oldest struggles. However, California, and I would say Evanston, Illinois, to a lesser degree, because Evanston is not as big a town as one of our bigger cities, right? Have demonstrated where people from a number of walks of life across the racial divide have came together and said, let's look at this, right? The solidarity that we have gotten in California from California's Japanese American community is a beautiful story, right? Most folks may not remember or realize that when World War II began, Japanese Americans were put in American concentration camps, right? And quiet as it's kept, some of the best soldiers that fought in the Second World War were Japanese American men who went to Europe. They didn't go to Japan to fight. in World War II. They went to Europe and gave Hitler and his boys hell, right? And one of them was a brother named George Kuchiyama, who was the husband of the late great Yuri Kuchiyama, right? Back in the 1980s, the Japanese received reparations for the abuse that they had to face being put in those concentration camps. So there are precedents that exist for reparations. The Japanese Americans recognized that as the reparations steam began to pick up in the last several years by virtue of all this organizing that we have been doing over the years, beginning to mushroom under the weight of all this police brutality and whatnot. And the other side of that, and that's what's happening here in New Jersey, is the interfaith communities, right? The faith communities. If there's ever a place to have a moral reckoning, your religious spaces should be those spaces. That's happening in some places, right? So you see this wave of what appears to be some real sentimentality for some restorative justice to take place, right? Coming from faith-based communities, right, and coming from other communities of color who've been through some things and understand this question, right? That drove that car in California that created that 490 some odd page document. That's the first of what's coming down the pike. We have a growing faith-based multiracial coalition in New Jersey that's genuinely happening. And I have to say I was cynical when it started moving here locally, knowing Jersey the way I know Jersey. I'm like, let me see, right? But this is our second year doing this gathering. And last year we had a huge turnout. And it was very multiracial. It was more white folks than I had ever seen in one place for reparations. Wow. I said, well, look at this. Now, y'all can't just come to Newark on Juneteenth and be out for reparations. You got to go back to Montclair and to Homedale and all of those enclaves that y'all live in. And y'all got to talk with Uncle Bob and Heather and all those folks and get them to come on board too now. But there is a space emerging where these discussions are taking place. Some healing is taking place, some education is taking place, and some coalition building is taking place. And that's what's important to appreciate.
I think there's one thing that we can all appreciate about Trump, and that's how much he unified so many different types of people. And there seems like a correlation between Trump and the way in which we reacted to because police killings been happening, all the stuff been happening, but it seems like I think that there were certain groups of white people that just didn't think that those types of other white people existed and that they were figments of our imaginations, and that like people going.
W.E.B. Du Bois wrote a whole book about a white boy named John Brown who was banging with them white folks back in the day. Have you forgotten that? I ain't gonna let you forget that. And I got some comrades that, some of them who got out of prison recently who are not black, who is very much in solidarity with the Black Liberation Movement on our underground, right? Honoring the tradition of John Brown. Okay, Dave Gilbert was the last to just get released. He's the father of Chessie Boudin, right? Who's the district attorney out in San Francisco, and they're trying to do a recall on this young man because of who his parents were, right? So they exist, right? And if that gets mainstream, we're talking about a different ballgame in this country for a minute or so.
Well, I mean, and I think that's part of a question. JeanPierre, Brutus, what do you find in terms of the support that you see for the reparations movement?
I think we're seeing increasing support, diverse support. We have our coalition just here in New Jersey itself is a very diverse coalition. We have religious lines, gender, race, class, people, all types of people who are invested in and interested in reparations, right? Many different types of groups. You could just see just from the sponsors of our reparations rally that we have a diverse group along many different axes, which is incredibly important. people talking about the ways in which they individually have conceptualized reparations and how it's affected their lives thinking about this. And I think, to your earlier point, I think part of it is, and unfortunately, because of, the kind of global pandemic people have faced, I think it's allowed people in part to think at a level of scale that they haven't had previously. And with, in some ways, we've been captured audiences. Before it used to be Black testimony that people relied on to talk about lynchings. And now with modern technology, no longer relying necessarily on Black testimony, but on these videos for people to see the kinds of violence that Black people have been subjected to in the United States, right? And also throughout the Americas. And with that combined with the sense of scale that people have taken from the pandemic, it's allowed people to think about reparations in a different kind of light in some senses, right? Just recently, the New York Times published a report about the slavery in Haiti and reparations, about the scale and the scope of that. A lot of work has been done by other scholars and activists on that work, but the Times simply allowed that to be promulgated to a broader audience. But the work for that is only possible through the work from activists, as Zaid has talked about, over a long history of time. And I think, we see more and more people coming to join the reparations movement, a diverse group of people. And I think at the rally, we'll continue to see this diverse group of people. And I've seen a lot of interest and involvement from many different types of people, right? And Japanese Americans, Jewish Americans, people of the Muslim faith, the Jewish faith, all kinds of faith groups who are invested in this and doing the work, making the calls, bringing out their friends, their family to come and be part of this. And I think the momentum is building and is something that's important.
Now, I know we don't have much time, but just very briefly, and we're going to have you back, but what are some of the things that you see reparations as looking at? Like we're talking about studying, and you don't have to spend much time on this, but we would talk a lot about reparations, but what is a way in which you see reparations happening? What is your vision of it?
So I think we could just look at what California has done, first of all, let's look in New Jersey. One of the things that we could be doing just is things like baby bonds, right? That's a program that we could be thinking about in terms of building wealth for future generations. Things about ending discrimination in housing appraisals, right? Those are closing youth prisons here in New Jersey. Those are some of the important elements that we can take here in New Jersey as part of reparations. And California has proposed a whole host of ideas just for California, but at the national level. But those are some of the building blocks that we can take here in New Jersey as part of reparations. But the task force will come up with many more recommendations, many more creative ideas, ways of thinking about ending things like redlining and other forms of discrimination, how to close the racial wealth gap, how to build more wealth, increasing home ownership within the Black community, ending discrimination in terms of home ownership, but also increasing incomes and wealth for Black communities, decreasing environmental racism. They'll come up with all kinds of policies. California has come up with some recommendations for each element. They've come up with some ideas about addressing policing, addressing disparities in health and other outcomes, issues around education and segregation. And so I think, New Jersey might build off of that, but I think those three things that I've outlined could be the start, but there'll be much more, I think, in living discussion about what is possible, what can be done, and what should be done. And that's really the job of the task force, to have those experts come in, provide recommendations, to think about, this could be done in Jersey. Things like same-day voter registration, improving access to the ballot, right? In California, they would allow currently incarcerated people to vote as one of their policy recommendations. So we can begin to think creatively, boldly, strategically about what recommendations can be. And I think, possibly financial dispensation. But I just want to leave your audience with this, and I think this is important. The historian Robert D.G. Kelly has pointed out that those people who have been mobilizing for reparations have always had an expansive notion of reparations, right? Reparations is trying to end the badge and incidence of slavery, but create a more just society here in the United States, but also in the Americas. And people have called this, world making, or producing a new kind of just society. And so we need to have a conception of reparations that it has this kind of boldness, this kind of forward-looking aspect. It's looking to the past in the current moment, but about building something for the future as well. And so we need to have that kind of vision when we're thinking about reparations as well. And so keep on holding on to that when thinking about why it is that we're trying to do this work and get this passed and get this done as well.
And remember, what we're talking about is this first step is a task force to do a genuine study, right? And the study, let the evidence dictate what the actual reparations distribution, if you will look like. Some folks, particularly white folks, who just don't want to give black folks anything and think we just asking for a big handout. It's just a check. Well, a check might be a part of it in some cases, but it's the systemic dimensions that have fostered the kind of underdevelopment. I'm going to use the language of the great Walter Rodney to try and make my point, right? That has shaped the dislocation and the the challenges that black folks have faced for so many years as a consequence. And the white folks have been by virtue of their privilege have not even had to look back and have the conversation. But there's some structural things that need to be undone, right? That need to be undone so that these kinds of things do not persist in the future. And the conversations, the examinations and the conversations that come with that, are part of the educational process that this country needs to go through in order to come to terms with its racist legacy and its racist history, because it is at the very cornerstone of the very fabric of the building of this country. We weren't brought here for entertainment purposes. Our ancestors weren't brought here for entertainment purposes. These lands were not taken from other people as a football game. It was about establishing some wealth and creating some power that a lot of folks have benefited from quite comfortably for a long time, and a lot of folks have been harmed and hurt as a consequence of how that was done. And it's time to address that. So,
yes.
One last time, JeanPierre, give us the rundown of how it's going to go down on the 17th.
So June 17th, the Institute and the People's Organization for Progress, we're hosting a rally that will start at noon at the Lincoln Memorial. There'll be some speeches at the memorial. Then we'll march to City Hall. At 1:30, there'll be some more speeches from legislators, from other luminaries, members of the community, rally in support of the Reparations Task Force bill, as well as our same-day voter registration bill, and as well as continued work to close youth prisons in New Jersey. All right?
Who are the bills? To give the bill numbers and the bill sponsors too, very quickly before we.
Sure. All right. So for the reparations, it's A938, and the lead sponsor on A938 is Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter.
Straight out of Patterson.
Yes, exactly. And for same day, it's bills A1966 or S247. And the main sponsors of that bill are primary sponsor is Raj Mukherjee.
Right on. Okay. All right. So there you have it. We'll be doing regular updates here and to all the different organizations that are co-sponsoring it. Y'all know that I do press for the People's Organization for Progress and lead organizer for NCAP and ACLU. Both are co-sponsors of the event also. So we'll all be out there and we'll all be pushing it. So pay attention. In the time. You muted, Jonathan.
I was going to say thank you. Thank you for coming on, man. And thank you for coming on again. And we definitely have to have you on again.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good evening. I appreciate it.
And who's your favorite hip hop artist right now? Who you're rocking with right now? Who are you listening to?
Oh, contemporary. Well, I'm always, last time I wanted to say it, I'm a big fan of A Tribe Called Quest. It's my favorite hip hop group of all time. I'm a big fan.
Brooklyn.
That's right.
I see over your right shoulder that Black Against Empire. We could talk. I want to have another conversation with you, son. Right?
Sure.
It'd be like that. We need some lawyers that understand that struggle. Those are my rules. I got you. I see you.
Well, thank you again.
Right
Man.
on, JeanPierre. We'll see you, son.
All right, bye-bye.
Hey, we're
What's good with y'all?
getting ready to go into our next section. We just had a bunch of conversations this week talking about new schools that are being built.
Well, hold up, Jonathan. Hold up.
What's what?
Two things real quick. First, last time, Kaleena, you were here, we were talking about the loss of a prize elder. Rock, the last time you were here, you know, you was getting beat up by COVID, right? Yeah, so I mean, I'm glad to see both of you back. And I'm glad we're talking in the up-tempo basis and not, coming out of the throes of some stuff like we did upon your last two visits. So I just had to bring the human dimensions of them coming in here first. Go ahead, Jonathan. My bad.
All right. So, no, that we were having some conversations. We want to welcome Rahaman Muhammad, Newark Deputy Mayor for Employment and Education activist, and person who is just someone who is doing all kinds of things to make the city better, Kaleena Berryman. And we're talking about the new School of Architecture and Design that is going to be built inside of Newark. And there was some there was some controversy, right? Like there were some people like, we don't want no trades. We were trying to do trades at 13, 14, 15 years old. Like nah, you want to go to college. You need to go to college. If you don't go to college, then you will not be successful. These trades, this. I'm giving a disservice to those sides. I am teasing, but a lot of people expressed serious concerns about if you have schools of like the ones that are being proposed in Newark or being built in Newark, right? Then would you have a situation where kids were just locked out of high-paying opportunity that you get from college?
How does a school of architecture and design equal no college? I don't understand. I don't understand.
I want to hear this.
This assumption that just because there's a school of NJIT is right now, they teach architecture and design. I don't understand that.
Well, because there was emphasis on HVAC and emphasis on other skilled trades. So it may not be the architecture that catches the flack. It might be the other skilled trades that catch the flack. So what's up? We don't wow.
Are you able to hear me, John? Y'all can hear me?
I hear you well.
Hear you well.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm perplexed to understand why anything in regards to trades has an issue when it comes to schooling. I think this philosophy around you have to be go to college or you won't be successful is just a flawed philosophy. I think there are a lot of successful trades people out there. Matter of fact, there are many trade people that have started multi-million-dollar businesses from learning trades. So the whole philosophy around it to me is just not it's not helpful, to be honest with you. And the problem that they have to me is this one size fits all system that continues to be pushed by those, by the way, who come from the system. So let's be very clear. There's a reason why everybody's that in charge of the one size fits all educational system, their success is based on coming and born from that system. So it's not, to me, surprising that they feel that way. But the problem is every human being, every child is not interested in going to college. And by the way, the statistics prove that. It's not just Rock saying that. You could just look at the statistics and see that the majority, I would say the super majority of our children, especially in the urban communities, are not going to college.
Now, one of the things that the pushback on that would be if 46%, I think the number was 46% of kids don't go to college, right? Then why not just try to push more in? Isn't that just the problem? Why not just be like, hey, we got 46% not going. That means we have failing schools and we need to push more people get people to college.
Jonathan, two things about those numbers, right? One is that they're not just talking about urban schools. They're talking about in generally, those statistics are talking about in generally students from all over. We need to do a much more study because in the urban community right now, we only got 20% of our students that are gaining college degrees. So you may have a bunch of children that apply to college, but very few are either going or completing college. So we have the super majority that is not going to get the secondary educational system that everybody continuously push as the only way you could become successful. And it's just not true. And the problem that I have with the argument that the individual pushed, that always pushed, by the way, is that I don't have a problem if you say we should do both, because I say you should do both. But they saying that you should only do this. And I'm saying, well, if you have the majority of these kids failing, why should we only keep doing that?
And I think that what we need in Newark are schools that inspire young people to find their gifts. And some young people are gifted with their hands.
Right, exactly.
With their artistic expression, and some young people are gifted with their mouth, that they gift of gab. And some young people really love math and are really analytical. Right. And so when I heard that there would be a school of architecture and design, what I thought of was a city that is in a renaissance, that is building all around us. Mm-hmm. And I thought we were building the next set of young people who could design our city, who could create our schools, who could design our office buildings, who would, design homes, who would become homeowners, who would become building owners. I didn't look at the educational pathway that comes from that, because there are many different ways that young people may decide to go once they know their gift.
Right.
So focusing on what young people decide to do after high school is preventing us from capitalizing on the opportunity of high school and saying that young person, we can build your confidence while you're in high school. We can show you your gift while you're in high school. We can ignite your fire while you're in high school. And then when it's time for you to plan your next step, you have some fire. If you go into our comprehensive schools and some of our magnet schools, so many of our young people lack fire. They don't have confidence in themselves. And so that's why they're not really choosing certain post-secondary paths, because they just don't know yet what they're good at. And so I was excited to see it. When you look at the courses, if people take the time to look at the courses, you will see that young people are going to study urban planning. We're paying consultants. I know, Deputy Mayor, you will vouch for this. Hundreds of thousands of dollars to urban plan this city.
Yes. Stop for a second. Can you back up on that and just explain to me what you're talking? Because what is urban planning? What is that? And you're saying we pay people for that anyway?
Yes, every day. Just one example is that Junius Williams, the former director of the Abbott Leadership Institute, he's also the city historian. They are turning the precinct into a museum that tells the story of activism in Newark. Urban planners and architects from NJIT students helped to design that in partnership with the firm. That is a very expensive project, I am sure. So imagine if you had kids, young people from the School of Architecture and Design, working with NJIT students and working with that firm to design the city. People are not thinking big enough about our children. If you give them an inch, they will make a yard. You don't need to tell them that college is important if you help them to ignite their fire. So we really have to elevate our conversation. And I think we also have to hold the district accountable for making sure that this school is not just about HVAC and plumbing. While HVAC and plumbing is great, I know a lot of my family members make a lot. As a matter of fact, my uncle, who was the go-to uncle my whole life when we needed money, he's HVAC and plumbing. So I don't understand how that's a bad thing. But the school is much more than that, and we have to make sure that it serves the students in a more vibrant way.
And also, and
this real conversation under this.
And this could be for both of you, because I think that one thing I really like, in terms of having a conversation, one thing I really like about the page that we're talking on is that these conversations are necessary, right? So even if I disagree with somebody, the conversations are necessary, and I always appreciate a lot of these conversations. They're really good. One of the things that came through in this conversation is that, and this is a lot of different people, right? Like is there a perception? Is there like a stigma to plumbing and HVAC
Yes.
that needs to be pushed back against?
Yes.
And where does it come from? And why does it need to be pushed back?
Well, I mean, if you look at, I just wrote it. Kaleena, I'm going to send you this paper too. I was waiting for the mayor to approve it, so I'm going to send it to you. I just did a position paper in regards to this subject because I wanted to submit it to the State Board of Education. And the position that I'm pushing really is that we create hybrid high schools all throughout the city. That teaches 2 tracks of learning, rather it's vocational track or rather it's a traditional educational model track. In addition to creating what you're saying, creating assessments when children come into school, like you said, to figure out what is their fire. You know what I'm saying? Corporations, when you get hired in corporate America, my wife does this all the time because she's in HR. They actually do assessments on people with college degrees to find out what their interests are and if they really fit at the job that they're applying for. And so, we need to do more of trying to understand what children's education, what they want to do and what they're interested in doing. And the stigma, if you read the paper that I just put together, the stigma actually has a historical racist stigma to it, right? Because these were generally manual jobs that in history people looked at as being secondary. Right. So rather it was being on the farm, rather it was doing carpentry, plumbing, whatever. It was a secondary educational system. And so even today, we still maintain that still stigma as alternative. We call it alternative. If you listen to what they say is this is the alternative path. You're going into an alternative educational system. Why are we even pushing it as an alternative method? Why can't I be a plumber? A plumber makes $80 an hour in New Jersey.
Right. Exactly.
Why can't I be a plumber? An electrician makes $80 an hour in New Jersey. As a matter of fact, we have a shortage of electricians and plumbers and carpenters in New Jersey, especially in our community.
Wait, hold on. So you're saying plumbers and electricians make $80 an hour?
Yes. A union plumber and electrician in New Jersey makes $80 an hour. That's without overtime, by the way.
Listen, let me racialize the discussion for a minute. Right? White folks ain't saying this stuff because white men have had a reserve bastion of these jobs.
Yes.
Skilled union labor
Absolutely.
was the pathway for white men to the so-called middle class.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It was so discriminatory about black men and black women trying to get into those unions.
Yes.
So we should be grinding an axe to kick some doors in that ain't open the way they should be to this day. Because $80 an hour works for some of everybody if you can get it.
Right. Exactly.
So there were a lot of arguments that I've heard, and that white suburban communities don't push their kids toward these professions, right? Like as in only black people and only we are told or pushed into these professions. You're saying that's not necessarily true.
No,
not true. If you go to it, the thing that we do that I'm not in agreement with is that we create magnet schools and we have a school for this, a school for that.
Right. Exactly, Kaleena.
That's what we do. To me, that's wrong.
Yes.
What suburban schools do is they have every high school has everything.
Yes.
So if you go to a suburban high school, they have construction, they have art, they have law, they have woodworking. So you don't have to go to all these different schools. And I went to a magnet. I went to Arts, Half of Television Communication. I wanted to be a lawyer. You see how that turned out? I'm not a lawyer, but I will take you to court, but because everything is so broken up, it makes young people have to make a choice. Yes. And it also leaves our comprehensive schools kind of on the back burner. Yes. And so what suburban schools do is they have everything. So there is no hierarchy of skill, no hierarchy of interest. You can dibble and dabble. And then you also have the entrepreneurship information. So you can be in HVAC, plumbing, construction, but you can own the company too. And they provide that kind of education.
And pass that down to your sons. And that's what white folks do.
But not only that, Kaleena, if you look at the waiting list for these trade schools, these so-called alternative schools that they're creating, the waiting list is long. And the other problem is that most of us don't even get an opportunity to get into these schools. If you look at Essex County Tech, go do a study on Essex County Tech and find out how many Newark kids are in Essex County Votech School. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So we don't even have opportunity. So that's exactly the point. That's exactly why every high school should be able to teach trades, and they should be able to teach a traditional educational model. We should give children an option on whether they want to do these things. And we're not doing that. And we're pushing this one-size-fits-all program. And I'm not saying that listen, of course, anybody want their child to go through. Listen, me and my wife, and I'm going to talk about this college thing too. Me and my wife, we want our daughters to graduate college. There's no doubt in my mind. As a matter of fact, when we had the discussion with my daughter about going into college, my wife was very adamant on her about getting a science degree. I have to be honest with you. I didn't understand the difference between a science degree and a liberal arts degree. But when my wife explained it to me, I said, wow, that's why I have all of these individuals that come into my office with these liberal arts degrees that never seem to go into the career that they went to school for. Because we push this one-size-fits-all educational system on them and say, you have to go to college, you have to go to college. Then when they go there, they go achieve the most less degree possible because we just want them to complete college.
Right, right.
And it's doing them a disservice when they come in.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
So you're like saying that the liberal arts degrees that kind of get pushed, actually, that's not necessarily a good thing if you're talking about employment.
Man, when you look, Jonathan, right now, if I got people that come in, they'll say, I got a liberal arts and sociology, right? And you say, okay, well, what do you want to do? Oh, well, I wanted to apply for the secretarial position. But you got I thought you were into sociology. You understand what I'm trying to say? But they brandish a 4-year bachelor's degree. But they happen now to apply for a secretarial position. Why? Because there's no sociology position that they're going to get to unless they go get an arts degree in psychology.
Right. Yeah, we're talking too much about. I think that we look at young people in such a short amount of time, and in Newark we have this thing where we throw them out after they graduate high school. So it's like whatever you're going to get needs to be in high school, and then okay, now you got to go to college and let them finish with you. Let them finish developing you, and that's the problem. If we approach high school as the time in which a young person makes a 10-year plan,
right?
Let's look at the next 10 years of your life after this. I've always been pushing. Every young person should leave with a post-secondary plan. And you use high school to kind of find your gifts. You learn about different things. We are exposing you to different pathways for your life. And then we make this plan. And that plan, like my goddaughter, she is doing a program where she's going to spend her first year after high school in London studying art. And then she's going to go to college. So we say, what do you want to do? What kind of life do you want to live? And we help them craft different pathways. Like, look, you can do this right now. When you leave, maybe we can get you an apprenticeship and you can try out some things and then you can go to college, or you can go the entrepreneur route if you decide to take your HVAC apprenticeship and then you study business. Here are the different options that you have. And as a city, we're going to support you for the next 10 years in figuring it out. But we kind of just, high school, all right, peace, good luck. And then we wonder why kids get stuck. Right. So once you look at it as like a 10 years after plan, then it no longer becomes we're pushing kids into trade, because a lot of people do trade and then they go to college, or they do college and then they do trade.
That's what I was gonna ask to the both of you, right? Like, is that the concern was that if you go to a school of architecture and design and you could be tracked to a trade, then after you graduate from high school, you won't be eligible for college. Is that in any way like when you graduate from one of these high schools, if you decide to change your mind, I'm like, I don't want to do that. Are you behind? Are you like?
The students at Essex Countyville Tech go to college, they go to trade school, they go to apprenticeships. The trade schools are not taking college off the table for kids. It's just not true. That's not happening. Young people are going to college and they're doing other things. Some of them are working for the school. But the other day I was sitting, because I spent a lot of time in Donald Payne Tech, and I was sitting with a young man and all of the kids were talking about their post-secondary plan. And he said he wanted to be a mechanic. And that didn't make me feel any type of a way. I said, okay, well, why do you want to be a mechanic? Well, my uncle owns a business. it made a lot of sense. I said, okay, well, let's talk about that. Are you skilled as a mechanic? Have you asked him if you can work in his shop? Why does our conversation with the young man who wants to be a mechanic have to differ from a young man that wants to be a lawyer? Who are we to tell people how they get to show up in the world? I do not understand that.
And when the lawyer get that big pretty car and it break down, he gonna need a good ass mechanic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're not even asking kids why they want to be mechanics. And he was a culinary arts student, by the way, so he can maybe bake a cake too. But we're not even asking kids, why do you want to do these things? You know, I have two cousins, Joshua and Jonathan. They make bathrooms, and they are spectacular. I am in awe of their work all of the time. Okay, it's a trade, but they both drive Benzes, and they're doing very well by their families, and they probably are doing better than me. So, you know, I think we have to elevate our conversation. And what we need to do is when young people express an interest in trade, then as a community, we have to build a city that helps them to gain wealth, to become homeowners, to become voters, to be able to guide their life after they make those decisions. And then that also allows them to change their minds. But we're the problem. We are too limited, and we're passing it off on the young people, and that's not fair.
And this question is for both of you as well. Aren't skilled trades highly intellectual, as in like you have to be a problem solver on a daily basis? Like I never understood the pushback against it, because I'm like, they literally have to solve unique problems with everything they do. It's always these higher order thinking skills, and except for it has a practical component. It is highly intellectual, practical problem solving on a daily basis.
Well, Jonathan, part of their journeyman status, them going through the apprenticeship program, is that they have to learn to read blueprints. Have you ever picked up a blueprint and tried to understand a blueprint?
No, thank you.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So
leave
when
you with the clues if you don't get them shit
right. I mean, a skilled tradesman is given that let's say an electrician comes in as a skilled tradesman. He's given a blueprint and said, I need you to go to section such and such of this building and wire it up as per this blueprint. And that individual has to wire it up what that blueprint says. So he had to go to school to learn how to read that blueprint.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Can I share with you guys some of this stuff I would change about how the courses are going to roll out? So we'll talk to the superintendent about that, but let me just share with you what young people will learn each year so we can stop assuming. Grade 9, architecture, they learn history, theory, and design. And then there's also survey of major trades, electrical, HVAC, and plumbing. But there is architecture, history, and design is a college major. Then there's also a trade. In grade 10, they learn computer-aided design. In grade 10, architecture 2. And they also start to have apprenticeships. In grade 11, they learn architecture 3, materials and methods, and introduction to interior design, in addition to the other stuff. And then in grade 12, which I think some of this should happen earlier, urban planning and development, interior design 2, New Jersey real estate license, green architecture. What about this says that you're just going to be a plumber and that's it? It doesn't say that. So I think they should do some of these grade 12 activities earlier, but this is dynamic. It's very exciting.
Let me say this, right? The ghost of the great ancestor Booker T. Washington needs to be appreciated.
Absolutely.
He created Tuskegee Institute. Mm-hmm. It was a synthesis of all this. Yep. And he used the lift. We have to lift ourselves up by the boots and put an emphasis on the skills building, along the trades. But that was about creating developing the capacity to create our own living infrastructure.
Absolutely.
We just got finished building the damn country for nothing.
Yep.
For nothing.
Mm-hmm.
For 2.5 centuries.
Yep.
Right? Why couldn't we create spaces that we control? That's the real mission of the historical Black college and university, right? That gives us everything that we need to develop. Not just book knowledge, but everything that we need to develop. From the ground up.
And I think this is also the question that I want to ask to the two of you, right on what Zaid said. Don't we, as a community, actually need a lot more skilled tradesmen to be able to
No
work
question.
within
No
our
question.
community, so that we don't have to always go on the outside to find people who have these trades?
No, listen, let me tell you something right now, folks. There's no, I tell people this all the time. It is crazy that we have one of the largest ports and airports in our backyard, and we don't get our children.
We're underemployed.
There are over 500,000 jobs that's attached between the airport and Port.
Wait, time out. Stop. You said 500,000?
Yes, 500,000 jobs.
No. Like 500,000?
Did you just hear what I said? 500,000 jobs that support that system. Wow. And so I'm talking about the warehousing. I'm talking about the terminals. There are 500,000 jobs that support that system within this region, not just North. So it's within this region. So, but yet it's in our backyard. Yeah. It is in our backyard. So why don't we teach our children to get those jobs? Come on. And what really bothers me too is the only job that we teach our children to get over there is a longshoreman job. Yeah. And then if they can't become a longshoreman, and let's be very clear, the longshoreman is only about 3,000. Yeah. Their numbers are only about 3,000. So we focus our children in the city of Newark to focus on 3,000 positions in the port. That's what we focus on. When there are 500,000 positions that support this system.
Do we even take young people to the port?
No.
No. And it's a bunch of seniors. There are a bunch of seniors sitting in an unnamed school right now that are graduating and have no idea what to do next. That if somebody probably in September would have took them down to the port and showed them all the opportunities, they probably would have somewhere to go after high school right now.
You know, the Seafarers Union, the people that work the boats, you know how many people work one of them cargo ships? Y'all know how many people work those cargo ships? You know the money that a seafarer gets? That's a part of the seafarer local, and they out on the they out to sea. You know that most of them don't even live. They're just gonna show you how much money they make. Most of them, they make so much money that they don't even live in the places where they come from. They go and they get on the boat for 6 months, and then they go live on an island for another 3 months because they don't want to pay their taxes, and then they get back on the boat and go make some more money. Like, there are so many jobs out there. There's so much that our children can be exposed to in this world that we don't expose them to. We'll tell them, why you want to go be a seafarer? What are you talking about? A seafarer living a good life.
Absolutely.
But why? But we don't teach them to do that. And these jobs are paying in the 6 figures. So when my brother puts up the data that he's showing making that money, heck, a Walmart truck driver that's driving a tractor trailer right now with a Class A license that only takes you 3 months to get is making $110,000 a year.
Wow.
And how many of us with college degrees are doing that?
Yes.
Right.
Three months.
Straight out of high school. Right?
3 months. And guess what, Zaid? We got money to pay for them to go get it, Zaid. We got money to pay for them to go get it. That's the crazy part. They don't even have to have the debt to borrow the money to learn to go get the CDL license. We can pay for them to get the CDL license.
Now I know we're ending this segment, and I know both of you have been on our show before, and we want to ask you that question. That before we just finish, just one final thing as we segue into asking about who you're listening to now, the music, right? And that's, if you have the ability to make a decent middle class salary at the age of 18, what is the effect on hopelessness? There's certain level, like there's some kids who if they come from a certain level of poverty and surrounded it, I've talked to many people who are like, no, we can't go to college. 4 years is too long.
Right.
We need money now.
Yes.
Like does this thinking start to actually give people options who may need those options for something good for our community, as opposed to things that are not so good for our community?
Well, I would say, of course. I wish somebody would have told me. I wish somebody would have told me when I was getting out the neighborhood in the streets, hey, why don't you go be an electrician? Why don't you go be a plumber? Oh, and this is the path that you have to take to do that. I never had that. And, you know what I'm saying, to see what, and by going into the business, when I first got out the streets, I was a maintenance man at the housing authority, making $7.35 an hour. But most of the people around me were tradespeople because they worked in the housing authority. And when I used to hear about back then, they was making $45, $50 an hour. And I used to always say to myself, wow, why can't I make that? And they used to tell me about, how they went to school, what they had to do to get it. And I used to be like, man, there's nobody telling us how to do this. And so I think, yes, it brings a sense of hope when you have the ability to have individuals, especially schools, that can steer you in that direction and show you the path to be able to achieve making that type of money. Of course it does. And it changes not just you, it changes your family life. It changes your family life.
Absolutely.
It changed our lives in this city because incomes would go up and our kids would be investing in their community as opposed to everybody they don't agree with in the community. Kaleena, I want you to knock that question out of the park, baby.
I just think that we're just what our young people need more at 18 is for the adults, those of us who are successful, to step up, to embrace them, to mentor them, to employ them and not fire them when they make a mistake, to teach them, to create opportunities for them. There is a need for us to step up. And when we don't step up, we put everything on schools to solve all of our problems. We can't do that because, and I understand why people are concerned about more trade schools, because there is a disease of low expectation that permeates school systems, no matter who's leading them or who's teaching in them, where we kind of have not we, because that isn't my story, but a lot of people who are in front of our children have low expectations for them and push them into pathways that are below their potential. That is a real thing. But if we step up, all of us here, all of us listening, and we take advantage of the opportunity that we have and help nurture these young people through the first 10 years after high school, then all of that, they will be successful. But we are letting them go and not holding on. So for me, that's just more important than anything else. We have to do better at supporting our young people after high school, regardless of what they choose to do.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming out this week, and thank you for coming on the show and having these really important conversations. I thought this was really good, the back and forth this week, and I thought it was a chance to really educate the community to see what people feel and think, and where the best interest of our community lies.
Mm-hmm. Great conversation. Thank you.
You're welcome. But
you ask the question though, Jonathan. You start asking.
Absolutely. Well, actually, I was going to try to get Hakim or Rhino to ask the question. Right? I brought him in. I was like, "Hey, so
they had to cut. We're just waiting to get on."
Right. So the question is, who you rocking with right now? Who you listening to?
I'm rocking with Jack Harlow. That man, that kid's spitting, man.
Oh wow!
I'm rocking with Jack Harlow, man. You know what I'm saying? They letting the other man come up, man. I'm
wait. Are you serious?
Oh, yeah, I'm serious, man. Man. I'm rocking with Jack Harlow, man. That dude is spitting, man. I don't care what none of y'all say, bro. You know what I'm saying? That dude's spitting. So don't try to deny his skills. Hakim, don't try to deny his skills. Don't deny his skills. Don't deny his skills.
Yeah, you wild right now.
Hey, Hakim. Oh, he don't got no skills, Hakim? For real, Hakim? Seriously.
He froze it on that note.
Stop.
Yeah. Now I'm going with Jack Harlow. I don't
Jack
care where I
Harlow
go.
got skills. Elvis Presley is the king of rock and roll.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh.
See, yeah, we can't be doing
Here
that,
we
man.
go,
I'm
here we
going
go.
with Jack Harlow. I'm rocking with my man Jack right now. That's what I'm rocking with.
All right.
Kaleena, who you
Kaleena.
got, boo?
Well, I spent my Saturday introducing one of my students, Khalid, who loves one of those rappers, to Jay-Z. So I made him listen to about 20 Jay-Z songs to introduce him to Jay-Z, and he left a fan. So that's who I was most recently listening to, Jay-Z.
Okay. All right, cool.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much. And
play that Jack Harlow song, Churchill Down. Play Churchill Down.
Okay, I'm gonna give it a try. I'm gonna give it a
Titles of the songs and everything.
That's hilarious. That's I would not have guessed. I would not have guessed.
Yeah,
All right. So thanks a lot, man, and talk to you soon.
All right, have a good night.
You too.
Okay.
So what's going on? So DJ Rhino, Hakim Green, thank you for coming back on.
Peace. Thank you for having me back on. Sorry, I'm actually on the road heading to my mama's house.
Okay.
I was supposed to be there already, but we got held up. But I was looking forward to this show. I was excited. I see Rhino got the Madism shirt on. So
Yeah, man.
The battery's in my back right now.
That's right, man. It came today, man. I threw it right on too. Good look.
Excellent.
Word up, man. But I'm still gonna hit you for that green and gold, man.
Nah, yeah, we'll work it out. I'm trying to have some shirts for everybody on, all politics are local,
Yeah.
Gotta bless everybody with the Madism flavor.
No doubt. But yeah, man. So I wanted to talk. You got time to talk about the album?
Sure. For sure. I'm on the road for a little bit. As long as you guys can hear me, it's not too loud.
No, we hear you well.
All right, great.
All right. So I wanted to set it off, just from the title, like what made you title it Nah Mean? And it's a two-part question. What made you title it Nah Mean? And then what made you do only 5 songs?
Okay, so I have been working on an album project called Aubrey. A full album, full LP produced by Ron Lawrence. I took a test in the Cypher last year. The Cypher features KRS-One. And then I dropped Jewelry in March. I have the last song on the project, or the last song to be finished, is a song called Real Hip Hop for the People. I have Midi Baraka on there. I have Do It All on there. And I'm hoping to get the mayor on that last song, Real Hip Hop for the People. So Aubrey's being held up.
You got MIDI on?
Say it again?
You got MIDI on?
Yeah, my video's on.
No, he said you got MIDI. You got MIDI on the project?
Yeah.
Oh well, we're gonna shoot a video as soon as that song is done. I'm waiting for the mayor. Fingers crossed that he can get in there and do it and bless it. And then
But you got MIDI Baraka on there. But you got MIDI Baraka on there.
I already got MIDI on there. I already got Do It All, and I got KRS-One's wife doing the hook.
Nice.
Called Real Hip Hop for the People, with this dope Gil Scott-Heron vocal in the hook. Oh my God!
Oh shit! Man.
Yeah, I know. Zaid is over there right now.
Yes, sir.
Got the God on there.
I gotta sip on some of that tea. That's right.
Yeah, Real Hip Hop for the People. So
yeah, I'm dying to hear that.
In this day and time, you got to keep content coming. So I didn't want to this EP called Nah Mean, just something short and sweet and to the point that I could throw out for the people and just keep the movement going. It's 5 songs, 2 verses each song, short and sweet, and that's why I named it Nah Mean. Nah Mean.
Okay. All right. Now, and who did the production on the project?
Oh, Big French from his producer out of Harlem. Left me with 5 joints, 5 bangers. New York rap, Now and Then, Loving Hip Hop, Son of God, and Can I?
Yeah, man. Yo, that Loving Hip Hop, bro. That's my favorite joint on the whole project, man. That's the one.
Well, initially you said, Can I Eat? And then you hit me last week like, you know what? The more I listen to Love and Hip Hop, I think that's the one.
Yeah, and I think what it was too. I think I just did. I had the order of them wrong, or the title of the order, or whatever. And so I was thinking it was Can I Eat when it was Love and Hip Hop. But Love and Hip Hop, man, that joint is so
Love and Hip Hop.
Yeah, that joint is tough, man.
Yeah, because of the subject matter, what I'm talking about, I was a little nervous about even addressing all that stuff. You know, I don't like being disrespectful, and especially when it comes to marriages and relationships and what have you. But the approach of it is a social critique, a critique of society. And these images, these role models, these influencers have been given to us. And a lot of times they lead us astray just by their own, just looking at that. And I've been saying for like a long time, America is the Jerry Springer show. Like the baseline of America is so much like the Jerry Springer show in terms of what we're in tune to, what entertains us, what we laugh at, what we find joy in. You know, a lot of times we're finding joy in miserable situations and laughing at people who are miserable and need counseling, but it's entertainment. So I wanted to be able to discuss that in a fun way, not a preachy way, to have some fun with it.
But you did that pretty well in the video as well, because you had a lot of those clips. You had a lot of those clips from you know, different shows, just different celebrities, different situations, just like what you were saying, like what's going on in society, kind of things that we see happening. You had a lot of those clips in the video. That's why I posted the video a few times, because I really wanted people to see it so that they can hear what you're saying and see what you're talking about at the same time. That video is tough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. It's like, you know, that all of the the uncivilized behaviors right up in your face all the time, you know. So, you know, showing, like, being direct with it and just showing people how they look, man. Hold the mirror up. That's what art is supposed to do at the end of the day. It's supposed to be a reflection of society, so we can see ourselves and hopefully make some adjustments as we go along, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Now, on New York rap, on New York rap, I always want to ask, like, who's doing the cuts on New York rap?
Oh, that's my homie DJ Nasty, aka PP Armstrong. If you heard Took a Test, if you heard The Cypher, he's doing all the cuts on those records as well. So yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that, because, you know, cutting and scratching, man, it's an element. Like it's
an element, man. Music. And I'm a DJ, man. Always got to look out for the DJs. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
most
sir.
definitely.
For sure.
Sir.
That's right.
Definitely big up to him. Right now, they're showing clips of the Love and Hip Hop video now on the screen.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that video is tough, man, and it goes perfectly with the song, man. Like it's action packed. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, loaded.
Yeah. Big shout out to Nice Flicks, who directed the video, and the homie Tariq is my driver in the car.
Yeah, I was about to ask who's the brother driving. Yeah.
That's my homie Tariq. Tariq the God, the Dread, the More.
Yeah.
Tariq the More. Yeah.
Yeah, nah, that's dope, man. Yeah, that video is dope, man. The song is dope. You got more videos for the album coming? Because it's just those two so far, right?
It's just New York rap, Love and Hip Hop, and I'm shooting a video for Now and Then on Monday.
Okay, yeah. Now and Then, let me tell you, Now and Then catches me out there every time. When I play it, I forget about the ending. When you scream on the dude and you're like, yo, where's my check, man?
yeah, man. Because
that comes up, man, I roll.
Yeah, Now and Then is just it's a comparison of hip hop in the music industry now and back then when we was coming up. It's just
that was the 90s. We were screaming on them for our check. That was the 90s back then.
That was the 90s. Now, you know, you just get an indie deal. You know, you stream your music and you get checks sent directly to you from the streaming service, the distributors. There's no middleman in the game. Back then, you had a bunch of middlemen, and, you know, if you didn't confront foot jokers, you wouldn't get paid. So,
yeah, man.
Yeah.
It was a real deal back in the 90s, man. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now, you know, what's all the platforms that the album's on right now?
Everything. Amazon, you know, Apple, You know, it's YouTube. You know,
I got it on my Apple
all
Music.
DSPs. Huh?
I said I got it on my Apple Music.
You did get it on Apple Music.
Yeah, he said he got it on Apple.
Nice, because we were having some problems with Apple initially. They pulled it because we spelled love in hip hop with a lowercase n. And for some reason, like you got to be real specific with Apple and how you label your stuff and how you frame it. So
yeah,
they yanked it and we had to put it back up. But I'm glad you got it off Apple, Jonathan. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what's up.
The funny thing is that, you know, old iTunes used to always mess up the way stuff was spelled. Like you could, you spell it like 5 different ways, you know, when they were selling it on Apple Music.
Right. Yeah, man. But yeah, I'm really happy about this Love and Hip Hop. Like for it to not have, you know, it almost didn't make the project, and that was the last song I recorded, and that seems to be the one that everybody gravitates towards, and the video seems to be, you know, catching. You know, it's just it's a good feeling to give people something that they can relate to. You can drop jewels and say something conscious, but in a way that people don't, you know, they're not like, oh, don't beat me in the head, OG, come on.
Yeah, and it's got a nice energy to it too, man. It's like kind of up tempo, like, you know, like the energy is good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yes, sir. But Son of God, man, that's the.
Tell me what's up with that. And you got the sample from one of my favorite Nas songs, that Represent.
Yeah,
sample.
Yeah, well, actually, the sample is from an old movie, actually, and I took it from the original, the source. I'm not gonna blow up the spot. Everybody that's not digging the crates, do you?
Right.
But
that's hip hop, you gotta dig.
Yeah, exactly. But Nas, you know, that's one of my favorite Nas joints, and I wanted to say something super deep, like that's for a very specific audience, a very specific ear. You know, X-Clan and Brother J was a very big influence on me, and I always loved the way he could spell out the comedic science in a way that was cool, in a way that was, you know, so relatable. That he was saying some, you know, high level knowledge and wisdom, and doing it in a way that, you know, you go back and check and you be like, yo, like he was spitting bars like it was right and exact though. Like the way he's talking about the different Kemetic deities and their importance and purpose and position and how they connect with one another. And you listen to X-Clan, you like, man, the dude was a very well-read dude when it came to Kemetic science. So I wanted to represent that and show how the Memphite creation theology is where we get the Trinity, is where we basically get Christianity and the concept of the Father, Patah, the Word, that whole thing. So that's Son of God, and yeah, you know, that's one of my personal favorites.
Yeah, man. Yeah. The whole album is dope, man. It's definitely something to listen to and learn from, because, you know, anybody that's not familiar with you, they hear this, man, they'll get an idea of what you about. You know what I'm saying? Just from the kind of stuff that you drop it. You know what I mean? So it's definitely solid on lyrical content for sure, because you're saying something, you're talking about something.
You mentioned, I think in an interview, about New York hip hop, and there's a sound that New Yorkers don't really claim right now. You were talking about that last week. I believe you were talking about that with us recently. What did you mean by that, and how does that affect this album?
Right. So, you know, hip hop was created in a very peculiar and particular circumstance. And like in your environment, how you create art, how you see the world, how the world around you shapes your vision is important to how your art comes out, how it's expressed. So you hear early, you know, New York rap, you hear, you know, sounds that remind you of concrete, steel, subway trains, of cramped conditions. There's a pulse and a beating of New York City, a vibe, a buzz in New York City that you feel in the music as it's expressed. And hip hop being, you know, birthed out of New York really captured that sound, that energy, that bop, that vibration. And then as hip hop grew and got popularized around the country, it moved in terms of like you got the West Coast blew up, and then a lot of the content was West Coast oriented. So you hear a lot of harmonies, a lot of open sounds, a lot of melodies to it. People are in their cars; they don't listen. It's not so much Walkman in this. It's your car, your ride, how it sounds in the car. It's the funk element. Even though we had EPMD who exposed us to it. LA and the West Coast sound was just funkified. And then you get down south, you get to the Miami bass, and you hear all these different energies and sounds that you could hear in today's music from artists that come from those regions. So when you listen to Kendrick Lamar, you listen to that whole TDE kind of movement, it sounds like LA. You listen to new artists from Atlanta, new artists from Miami, new artists from Texas. They still have the element of the original sound of that region. New York, the new artists coming out now, not so much. You don't hear New York in their music. You hear New Yorkers imitating other regions. So for me, it was like I'm 53. So, off top, young jokers is gonna be like, "Oh, I'm his OG. Come on, OG." They're gonna have the wall up. So I'm trying to talk to people who understand me. I need to give them music in a way they could understand it, and that's why it sounds that way. And I want to elevate, New York rap. Well, not just New York rap, but that original rap sound, that original hip hop sound that we love so dearly.
Yeah. No doubt.
Yep.
Man, no doubt. You're definitely on the right path, man.
New York rap.
You're definitely on the right path.
Yeah, man. He said, bringing back that old New York rap with a cut over there. See, in the hook. You got to bring it back. We got to bring cutting and scratching back.
Cutting and scratching, man.
The original ways.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
No doubt.
That's what it is. So now you got my mind locked in on this project you was talking about. You said it's called Aubrey?
Aubrey. I took a test in the Cypher featuring KRS-One last year. I put out Jewelry in March. I got Culture Freedom featuring CeeLo Green and Freeway. I got Stolen Art featuring Carl Thomas. And I got this other joint called Niggonometry featuring Malik Youssef. And then a whole bunch of other joints. It's 10 in total. But it's a continuation of me expressing that original sound of hip hop. So lots of cuts and scratches, lots of break beats, lots of samples and loops. Trying to bring that wave back,
Yeah. Well, we're gonna be looking forward to that one, man, because that one sounds like it's gonna be powerful.
Right.
Super powerful, man. You know what I mean?
Did you just say
anything you want to lead us?
Especially when I get this real hip hop for the people done. Say it again.
I was saying, anything you want to leave for the people?
I missed that one. What you say?
Is it anything you want to leave for the people?
Man, go check out Namin. Go check out Namin on all digital platforms. The videos up on YouTube. Love and Hip Hop and New York Rap by Hakim Green. Go check it out. Go represent. Go support. Go like and subscribe. We do Madism Sports every Thursday. Check in with me. I got Madism TV, one-on-one interview platform. Check in with me at Hakim Green, HAKIMGREEN, at Madism.info, and at 24 Hours of Peace, 24 HRS of Peace. And we get ready. Newark, New Jersey, you know what it is. August 26th, August 27th. Put it on your calendar, 24 Hours of Peace.
Yeah.
So that's right, because what year of 24 Hours of Peace right now? What year?
This is going to be like 13. I think. It's going to be the 13th one.
Has it gotten different from when you first started?
Yeah, it's just getting bigger and better.
Okay.
See, every year it gets bigger and better. It's always love. It's always a great time. It's always impactful. Big shout out to Mayor Raz Baraka, and of course, big shout out to Amiri Baraka Jr., who gave me the name and concept 24 Hours of Peace to run with. But it was inspired by the national, that too, the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition, and calling attention to stopping the violence and using hip hop to do so. It's grassroots, so it started out with a winger wagon, all hands on deck. No money, no budgets. Just had to make it happen. And for 4 years straight, we did just that. And then Southward Councilman Raz Baraka became Mayor Raz Baraka.
That's right. That's right.
He kept his promise, and he stayed committed, and stayed focused, and stayed locked in. And man, last year on Broad and Market, man, it's like KRS-One.
It was bananas. It was bananas.
Siegel, Freeway, KB Rock, DJ Little Man comes to support every year. Gives us that extra battery. Yeah, man. So, we're gonna keep growing, keep pushing. Peace, love, unity, safely having fun.
That's it. That's it.
Nice.
That's what it is, man.
And all we do is spark madism.
That's it.
Well,
what up, Congressman?
Hawk.
What up, Don?
How you doing, brother?
I'm great. Last time I saw you on here, I didn't realize it was you coming on. I hopped off too quick and tried to hop back in, but salute, bro. Salute.
Absolutely, brother. You're a sight for sore eyes, man. It's been a minute.
Yes,
brother. Good to see you. Where you motoring? Where you motoring to?
I'm heading to my mom's house. She's in Central Florida.
Oh wow!
So
all right.
I'm going to spend some time with her.
All right.
Yeah, man.
All right. That's what's up. It's good to see you, my brother.
But likewise. Listen, I appreciate you guys, and until next week.
We appreciate you back. We very much appreciate you back.
All is emotion.
Peace, Hakim. Peace, my brother.
Peace.
Right.
Hey.
He's still coming.
So how are you? How are you this week, man?
Tired. And I'm in the last week of that grind, man. But
you said the grind. Like what's grinding? What's going on?
Well, listen, if you're a debate coach at a high school in Newark, you don't know what's going on. I'm gonna have to report you to the Board of Education.
Oh no!
I have to call Roger. No, the week before election, about 4 days ago, and I'm feeling pretty good. Wasn't that optimistic in the beginning of the campaign, but I feel good that we've been doing everything we need to get our message out
every day.
Okay, so
all right. That's what I like to hear.
You said you were not optimistic in the beginning of the campaign?
No, I was very concerned, and the folks around me, were too. In the climate around congressional candidates these days, there is a move afoot from the left that says that members like me are obsolete and we're not progressive. And I'm trying to figure out when wasn't I progressive?
Wow.
And it's unfortunate because it's other people labeling you, not the electorate. Somebody wants your position is decided to label you something, and it's just unfortunate. But
it was interesting. I was doing some research because I was interviewing some people, and I was doing some research, and I realized that you were actually endorsed by Congresswoman Jayapal, like the head of the Progressive Caucus. What's like? I wasn't surprised, but I was like, oh, that's interesting, right? Like, is there a backstory there?
No, not really. I just what I really have found through this whole endeavor this time is how much my colleagues really respect me. It's been overwhelming, the support that I've received from them. And I knew I got along with them and, worked together. But I mean, what they've done for me. Jim Clyburn was here yesterday, and you know, um, the man that makes presidents. He was here for me in my campaign yesterday, and we made a few stops, and it was really great to see the people's enthusiasm and reception for him. But I mean, here's a man that could be anywhere in the country, and he decides that he's going to come in and stomp for me. So, uh, it's just been very humbling to realize. And one of my colleagues said it to me. I was like talking about it. I said, yeah, well, I really, they raised me, a lot of money. All my colleagues contributed to my campaign. And, I was like, wow, I've really been surprised by the outpouring. He says, why is that, Donald? He says, everybody likes you. Everybody thinks you're a good guy. Everybody sees the work you do. So why wouldn't we support you? He said, we need you back here. And I was just like, wow, just blown away. And, from Val Demings to Jim Clyburn to Barbara Lee, to Jaya Paul, I mean,
Val
it's just
Demings is making a move down in Florida too. I know you may want to comment on that.
absolutely. That's really one of my sisters, and we've gotten very close over the last 4 years. And she's in the 10th district in Florida. I'm in the 10th district in New Jersey, so we always kind of make note of that, and have worked on many things. And she calls me. Her nickname for me is Overachiever, and she says that. Because I'm one of the members of the Democratic caucus that speaks most of the time on the floor. In fact,
Oh wow.
I had more floor speeches. It hasn't been during the pandemic, but the year before the pandemic, I spoke on the floor probably more than any other member other than the speaker and a few other people. And so I definitely out of the New Jersey delegation, but I received a trophy. It's kind of a joke, but I had the most floor speeches of any member of Congress, and I do that every day. I go down to the floor and I speak on any topic that is either relevant or somebody back at home does something great, and we acknowledge that. So I speak almost every day after business is over. So it's a pretty high traffic event, and so Val Demings, I'm always sitting in the chair waiting to speak, and she comes by and she looks at me and she says, "Overachiever."
Now, there's a question on that, right? Like, I know that for a while that you weren't as comfortable speaking. Is you going down to the floor every day? Is that something that is an internal growth you decided to do to get better? And because you're like, I noticed that you do a lot more interviews now. You're on CNN more. Like, when you're going down to the floor every day, is that part of internal growth build? What's the story behind that?
I don't know if it's internal growth, Bill, but I really still don't. I still feel the way I felt back then, John. But it's an obligation for me to do my job, and it's part of the job. And so, even though I don't, seek it out as much as others. I mean, there are people that want to be on every day and, every news media. That's not me. I wanted to be there when I need to make an impactful statement because folks, if you on every day, on the media side, they will get tired of you're doing everything. But the things that I talk about are different things every day, whether it's gun violence or violence against women, or the Newark debate team winning the nationals or whatever it is. I speak to that, and it has developed. You cannot help but develop, but it wasn't anything I was doing to develop. I just felt it's my obligation, to step up and discuss things that are important to my constituents. So it's really, and it's the one thing I do, John, when I talk to young people. I tell them that there are going to be things in life that they don't want to do. And I use that as the example. Like, I do not like speaking in public, but it is part of the job that I've taken on, and it's an obligation for me to do that part of the job. So, I tell them there are going to be things in the world and in your life that you're not going to like, but you need to do. And that's really my message to kids when I speak to them.
Okay.
So you know what I want to do? I want to read something to you, Congressman. Peace, by the way, my brother.
Peace. Good to see you.
You too. So I don't know if you saw this headline in the Jersey Globe, where it says Clyburn campaigns for Payne at Newark rally. Door keeps closing on Democratic primary challengers. That's the headline. But then here's the first paragraph. It says the path to oust Representative Donald Payne Jr. in next week's Democratic primary, which has always been remote at best, became even less likely on Thursday when House Majority Whip James Clyburn came to New Jersey's 10th district to stump for the incumbent.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't see that.
Just the headline alone, but then the first paragraph.
Yeah,
which was awesome.
Mr. Clyburn warrants that type of attention. So, like I said, he's the man that makes presidents. So I'm tickled to death that he had time to come here for me and do the same thing he did for Joe Biden.
Was that the first time he came to campaign for you?
No, he actually has come before, very early on in my tenure. We used to give a ball. We would have a ball every year, dress, formal ball, and he was my guest speaker one of those years. So he's been here for me before, and he has roots in Patterson and in this area. He got married in Patterson.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. He has family in New Jersey, and he spent his summers here, like working in Hackensack and Tenafly and Teaneck, and so he has some Bergen County roots, and actually got married in Patterson, and thought he was going to stay here, but after a little while, he didn't like it, and they went back down to South Carolina. So,
but his wife is not from New Jersey, though, right?
No.
Okay.
No, he had family here, and then he thought, as folks migrated from the South, that there are better jobs up here and this and that, and he'd do better up here, but for some reason they didn't like it, and they went back down to South Carolina. But it's funny because he tells Bill Pascarell all the time, who represents Patterson. He says, "Boy, you're lucky." He says, "You're lucky I went back to South Carolina."
Pascal is sure he is very lucky he went back to South Carolina. Because he beat his behind.
Yeah, but so that's the question that answer that question, John. It's part of my job, and even though I don't necessarily care for it, that doesn't mean I can neglect it.
And I can see, like, you at least, even if you don't actually feel more comfortable, you at least appear like you're more comfortable in terms of all these things. Or
Yeah.
is that,
Like,
or is you appearing more comfortable just, are you saying all this just to get your opponents to underestimate you again?
No,
we know you love when people underestimate you now.
Absolutely. It's the best thing I've ever had going for me. But you have to get better, John. You know that as a debate coach. Repetition and practice makes you better. So, I do feel that my presentations are better. I do realize that. I do feel I do better in connecting with my audiences when I'm even on the stump speech. So it's definitely much better, and I'm glad that you noticed it. Being, having the skills that you have. I mean, that's what you teach. So
Fair.
I appreciate you noticing.
Okay, cool.
Hey, Congressman, talk a little bit about, I know you were out, in Montclair, with the folks who were campaigning against that Supreme Court decision, Wade versus
Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, and I know you were in Montclair. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I when naturally when we found out what was going on, there was a call to arms in terms of defending a woman's right to choose, and naturally, I wanted to be supportive because I believe in that wholeheartedly. That every woman has a right to choose, and regardless of how I feel about that situation, there's no reason any man should be determining what a woman does with her body, regardless, health-wise, sexually, or any other way. First of all, it's their body, and it's unfortunate that we have the law at all, because there's not one law that governs the way a man's body is looked at in this country, and has anyone, offered up anything.
Mic dropper.
So, that's the first thing. And then, who am I to determine, what a woman does with her body? I might have opinions on it, but it's my opinion and that's my business, and nobody, like I said, everybody has opinions, and what else. So, that's how I feel about that. So I was very passionate and joined Planned Parenthood and a bunch of the labor unions to speak out about it. And to your point, John, some folks said that it was probably one of the most passionate times that they've ever seen me speak and forceful. But it's in me. I just don't operate from that position a lot. I do the work. I don't, my emotions are pretty even keel. And I have to operate that way because I know who I am. And so I have to be fairly even keeled because, my off kilter is way, way off. And so I can't afford to act like that. So I try to maintain a fairly even keel. I'll get angry, or very passionate, for a moment or two, but then it kind of settles back down. And I'm a big proponent in balance, in balance in everything. And so, but in that case, understanding what this type of thing means for my daughter, and other women. I just had to step up and make make myself known where I stood on it
do.
and how I would be fighting down in Washington for this. So
This is a time where we all need to be stepping up, right? Ed, I opened the show talking about the urgency of the convention because of what's at stake in this election year. We all, and I want to apologize to women everywhere, particularly because not only do we have this backwards Supreme Court driving this train now, but the chump that's writing the case is Alito, the one we got from Jersey.
right.
I mean, God, really? We knew it was coming. There's a reason why they put these backwards people on the court. We knew this that there was going to come a time when we're going to have to deal with this.
Hey, listen, when you say backwards and from New Jersey, yes, yeah,
that's right.
I'm not surprised. I mean, this state. I tell people, I've always told people, shoot, New Jersey should be under the Mason-Dixon line, the way it has functioned throughout history. I don't think we ratified the 13th Amendment.
Last one.
Wow.
Jersey couldn't even vote for Abe Lincoln.
Wait, New Jersey was the last state to ratify the 13th Amendment?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's ratified. Is it ratified? John, you should know that.
Oh, I assumed that it was. I assumed that it was.
Yeah, but it took some. They were.
But it was the last state in the union.
That's funny, John, because the brother who was on earlier.
That's right.
When he was talking about when he was talking about how this state and the level of poverty amongst Black folks versus white folks in this country, that does not surprise me.
Right.
That not to happen in New Jersey,
But here's the but though. I want us to keep it positive though, right? When Fannie Lou Hamer came, it was in Atlantic City. When the great Fannie Lou Hamer came in, bum rushed the Democratic convention, out picking it out on Atlantic City boardwalk, right? It was one of the most important moments of this particular era in the battle for the ballot, right? And so to your point, we all have to step up in this particular historical moment, right? Absolutely. Buffalo, if that ain't a wake-up call, I don't know what is. We all have to step up. These crazy folks are not playing. They were trying to take Washington by force on January 6th. They're not finished.
Yeah.
Until the good people in the world, if necessary, beat their behind.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Congressman, what I'm hearing a lot of folks talk about is the level of planning that these people are doing, and the money that they're getting, from all of these people who are supporting, this whole what they're calling in a sense, this whole gun revolution, right? Because they're not saying anything really about these white kids going out doing these mass shootings, and and of course you heard the president last night saying that the age should be raised from 18 to 21, and the fact that at 18 that at 18 years old you can go in and buy an assault weapon, but at 18 you can't buy a handgun. I mean, that's absolutely insane.
It's absurd. It's absolutely.
I mean, that just sounds backwards, man.
Absolutely.
And the moment that guy turned 18 years old, because his sister wouldn't purchase him that weapon, he went in and bought the weapon.
Right.
And what I understand is why the person selling that weapon didn't think somebody buying 160 bullets, there was something wrong. Like, why do you need that many bullets?
Right. Those guns, you can't use them for shooting rabbits and squirrels and birds and deer. Those are for killing people.
Right.
Straight out. And they should only be available to our armed forces.
Yeah, and these young and they're buying these high-powered rifles and body armor.
Right.
Body armor is supposed to be selectively reserved for law enforcement and military. How are these kids getting access to that?
how do you outgun these kids if they're wearing what you got on? You
That's
know,
right.
they're even in the playing field. You know, law enforcement is supposed to have the upper hand, but what it is these people in this country are so scared of people are frightening them to arms. You know, they're coming for you. They're coming for you.
Yep.
They want you to be the minority. And the problem is when most people in this country hear that, they get worried. I mean, they've never been used to being in the minority or, outnumbered and so, they take it very seriously because they think that we're going to mete out the same type of treatment that they did.
That's absolutely right.
And that's what they're scared of.
That's right.
They're figuring, oh my God, these people owe us. If they get, oh my God, what we've done to them, they're going to get us.
What did Malcolm say? It's America's in a unique position to avoid a bloodless revolution. All she got to do is give the black man and woman everything she's doing. It's called reparations, y'all. Right? It's called reparations.
Right.
Those conversations are happening. Right on to California taking that step a couple of days ago. Right on to that. Right? Those conversations need to keep mushrooming. As they do their stuff, we got to do our stuff, but we got to do it better because we are better.
But I tell you, Congressman, as long as we got people like Tucker Carlson, who, from the moment he come on the air, he's spewing this level of fear, and you got these impressionable, young white maniacs listening to that. I mean, you're going to constantly have that, right? Yeah. I mean, so, these cats get pissed off. They got these assault weapons sitting in their rooms. I mean, and really, we've got to be conscious because this can happen at any moment, at any time, particularly at any black gathering, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Because these people are right, and Donald Trump is laying in waiting. I mean, he's organizing. These folks support him tremendously. So, them going in and thinking that they're losing their country. And so, whatever the black event is, I mean, these cats are laying in wait. I mean, and think about what happened in Buffalo. This cat, had did some reconnaissance. I mean, he was sitting out. He had been there to this place before.
Right.
He sat there and checked this place out. And this is true, Congressman. Most of us, most black, especially elderly black folk, they're very kind to young white people, right?
Absolutely.
And so I'm sure those older folk who saw him sitting out there most certainly didn't think he was thinking about coming back and killing them.
Right. Hello, young man. How are you?
Right. That's what we see. That's what they do.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw the video, but there's an actual video of this thing, right? That he was shooting on his helmet. And I gotta tell you, man, I was
sharing it with social media.
I sent that video to John and Bashir, and I'm telling you, man, this dude was killing our people indiscriminately. He did let one white person live, though.
Mm-hmm.
He pointed the gun at him, and then he looked over to another elderly black person and killed her.
Mm.
Yeah, I couldn't watch it, man. I couldn't see it. Couldn't watch it.
I have to look at too much as it is. Police stuff.
I didn't see it, but I heard that he allowed a white person, and he even apologized, like, "Oh, sorry,"
he did.
And then shot the woman next to him in the head.
It was
man. And you know what that says? I hope when he goes to trial that they don't try to use a
insanity defense, because he was very rational.
They already got that ready. There's a reason why they took him to court in that little hospital gown. That was the beginning of it.
Mm-hmm.
They're already getting ready to stage that.
Yeah. Boy, they never shoot any of those guys. At the scene, it's amazing.
Right.
But that, but the thing is that I don't see black people training their young children to be radicals and killers, right?
Right.
I just don't see that. I mean, if y'all see it, share it with me because I don't see mothers
Our
dropping their
kids were
sons off.
marching from Seattle
I don't
to
see that.
South Carolina 2 summers ago for George Floyd and had a whole bunch of white kids marching with them.
Right.
That's what our kids are doing.
Right.
Because think about it. When you got mothers dropping their sons off with AR-15s and into a rally, and then he goes out there and starts killing people, and then goes to court, right? And then the judge sympathizes with him, and then they let him off.
The judge treated him like he was his son.
Right. And you got brothers who been in jail, didn't necessarily murder anyone. They just stood up for black folk, been in jail, right? For 30 and 40 years.
40 and 50 years.
40 and 50 years.
And
because they stood up for black people.
Amazing.
And here's a guy here's a demon that kills 2 people, goes to court, and then and check this out, Congressman. I hear he's getting ready to go on a speaking tour.
Wow.
I'm like, what? And his speaking fee, right? The company is going to represent him. His speaking fee, get this, starts at $250,000, $250,000.
Yeah, they taking care of him.
Unreal.
They made a hero out of that little money.
What?
Unreal.
Mm-hmm. $250,000. The hell what?
Oh, you mean that the kid from Wisconsin?
The kid. That kid. That's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
He's going on a speaking tour. It's almost like the dude in Florida, who killed the young brother. Was out there making money off of that.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, man.
I'm really concerned about this country. I was thinking this week of where we're headed. With Florida being the way it is, and that's going to be a dictatorship down there in Florida. The way their governor is moving. I mean, they wiped out. He created a map for the congressional seats, and he wiped out 2 black Congress. He wiped out Al Lawson's seat, and he wiped out Val Deming's seat.
So what do you think? Now, having raised the question of Val Deming, what do you think about her? She's running up against Marco Rubio.
Yeah, I think she's
brave move, and she's up against a lot. How do you think
she's going to beat Rubio? I think she's.
I hope so. I hope so.
She's very bright, articulate. It comes out of law enforcement. She's the chief of police in Orlando, and so she has moved up through the ranks from a patrol person all the way to the top position in the Orlando Police Department. She was the actual police chief when they had the shooting at that club.
Right. Then I didn't realize that. Wow.
Right. And her husband is now the mayor of Orlando now, and he was a sheriff's officer. He was the head of the sheriff's department in that county when that happened. So the 2 top cops in there in that shooting were married and both African American.
Wow, I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah.
That was at Pulse. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, Pulse
I think I was in Orlando maybe a week before that happened.
Yeah, we went down on the Congressional Black Caucus. We went down to support Hillary and also, stump for Val and some other folks down there while we were down there. So we were all in that area. We were around Eatonville, which is very famous African American community. And
Nice.
Val Demings has Eatonville in her district, and so
Really?
we were there.
That's,
we were there, and when Hillary was down there, and so we were able to rally with her, and got to meet Val. Val lost the race 2 years prior to her winning. Actually, she lost 4 years before she won, and missed out and ran but didn't get it. And then the next term she won. But she's been an extraordinary member of the CBC and of the House. And you can't lay that
New Hurston territory.
Yeah, you can't. You can't lay that anti-cop on her. She ran a whole police force. What are you talking about? So that argument with them goes out the window. And so, to say she's soft on crime, is a misnomer. So she starts in a good place, and I think.
Does she have a chance to win?
I believe so. Yes, Rubio.
It would be huge if she did.
Rubio's such an empty suit, and plus we're going to see what happens in terms of these midterms. It'll be a great barometer, for the midterms. If she does, and it'll show whether this Roe v. Wade issue is going to be strong enough for us to win the House back. But just to think that we won't have the leadership in the House again. I mean, I spent my first 6 years in the minority, and it ain't fun because you really don't get to do much. Although, John, I did pass a bill in my freshman term on Homeland Security that went through the House of Representatives 348-0.
Wow.
Yeah. No one voted against it. And it was a Homeland bill that talked about reaching interoperability at the Department of Homeland Security. The most difficult thing with that group was, Homeland was created out of 22 entities in the government and brought together under the one arm of Homeland Security. And so everybody, had their own little, towers of power, and nobody wanted to give up, anything. And so it was very difficult getting them together. And my bill kind of just slapped them around and said, all right, enough of this crap. It's been 11 years. Let's get it together and move forward to protect this nation as one. And it went through the Congress 348-0.
Okay.
One vote against it. And I was a freshman too. First of all, they were trying to figure out how the hell I ever got the bill and got it, on the floor. It was under a Republican administration. So there were a lot of things about it that were pretty unique and incredible, at that time in the Congress. And for a freshman, half folks still didn't even probably know my name. But, I was able to work it out. And so I'm very proud of that.
Is there something that, like, especially when, and I actually remember you talking about it. The reason why you were a little nervous at the beginning of this was because the district changed in New Jersey, right? And that was probably part of the issue.
I don't know, John. I don't know if that was it. I was just nervous to be stepping up, on this level of government. I was always very humbled by, being president of Newark City Council, which I thought was, a real pinnacle. But, to step up and following my father, like, oh God, how am I going to live up to this guy? And, try to do what I could for the people of the 10th district, but he was a good teacher. And, obviously I learned at his side, and things that I watched him do, bode well for me in the future. And I have carved out, a place for myself, and in terms of my leadership. Um, right now, like I said, have one of the most powerful subcommittee chairmanships in the House of Representatives, and one of the most relevant to this area. With trying to get the Gateway project done. I also was the person that got the first $900 million for it. Once again, in a Republican-led Congress, I was able to get $900 million allocated to that project, and so which is something that doesn't normally happen. So, I guess, I've been very hard on myself, but I guess I might be able to do this job. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, I was, and again, I was doing a little bit of research on you, and I found that there was a lot of money that just came into the district that from both the infrastructure bill and a few other things that, and I think I remember we having this conversation maybe 6 months ago about there's a lot that happened that we never know about because you really didn't talk about it much, right?
Right.
And with the infrastructure bill, it seems like if you ever are going to have a tough race, it seems like this is the year to have it, right? Especially given where you are and that the infrastructure bill passed and, the influence that you have on getting money here.
That's a very, very good point, John. I had a great deal to do with, and that's what people have been telling me. I need to talk more about the things that I've accomplished. But, like my father, we just try to, let the work we do speak for ourselves. But, it takes a long time for, these things to sink in. And, to a certain degree, my father had the same problems, fast forward looking back, had an incredible 23-year career in the House of Representatives, but it didn't happen overnight. It was, it was 1 year, one term at a time. And then you look at the entire body of work and you realize, how incredible he was. And, especially on issues that pertain to his district and being an African-American, male and being the first African-American, from New Jersey to go to Congress. And, just so many different firsts. He was the first president of the YMCAs of the United States and its youngest at 33. Just think, he was elected the president of the United States YMCAs at 33 years old. Mm-hmm. And, just an incredible feat. But, the person he was, led to him, escalating and moving up, the ladder to be in that position. And it was really the YMCA where he got, his, he's a history teacher by trade and always loved history. And then when he started to travel, always likes people, always loves people. That's one thing you could tell about him. He really loves and cares about people. And so to travel all over the world, he was meeting more people from different backgrounds. And really what people think, a lot of people think when he went to Congress, he became Mr. Africa. But he actually, during his time, plying his trade with the YMCA, and really the YMCA was just a vehicle. He was always looking for the vehicles or opportunities to expose young people more and more to what this country has to offer. And so, he took these kids off the corners that were in these quasi gangs, it was more like West Side Story, the Jets and the Sharks, and they, you're on your corner and get off of our corner and that type thing. And what he did was, knowing that he needed to do something for them, he taught them the fraternity and sorority system. So he turned the, Belmont Avenue bullies to Phi Epsilon, Phi. and taught them that, and then had them, do community service and that type of thing. He had to do something for community service, and then they also gave dances, at the Y on the weekends, like Friday nights. Each fraternity or sorority would be representing, and they would have the parties. It was a quarter to get in, and they would pull that money together, and he taught them how to have a bank account, and use the money towards their account to do different things, and really just taught them community engagement and service. But he used the Y as a vehicle. He started having the meetings at the YMCA, and being involved with the Y, then you represent the Newark Y at this, and then he just continued to move up through the infrastructure of the YMCA to one day he was their president, and it was just an amazing feat. He just a real incredible guy. But like I said, he used different things in community and all as vehicles to advance what he was trying to do for young people. So that's really, he became the president of the YMCA because he needed somewhere for kids to meet, in the beginning, and continued to build it. I mean, to a point where he had 500 kids in Newark high schools organized and doing these different parties and bands, and dances and social things. And he really was just using the Y for somewhere for the kids to go, and ended up, through his work, becoming the president of the YMCAs of the United States. And so he was always looking for the next vehicle to advance what he was doing around young people. So,
the other thing is, though, I think that, I've always enjoyed, about your father as I was coming up in the city of Newark, and you growing into that too, was really his authenticity, right? He was always authentic. I don't care where you ran into, Congressman Payne at, wherever you ran into him, he was always just authentic. And I know you know this because you had to get tired of this coming up. I mean, he talked to everybody. I mean, he was just, he was always available, and it seemed like he was always at everything. Zahid, you probably remember he was at that big meeting the NABC had at Frederica Bay's school. Remember that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. When he came out, and so he was everywhere, man.
He always had time. He always had time for people, and never looked down at anybody. He always treated everybody, with respect. And that was one of his greatest feats. He treated everyone, like, they were the only person in the world at that time, and, gave them the attention that he felt warranted, and, with the respect that he gave. So he's my dad, and I know, naturally say these things, but even objectively, if you knew him, he's just an amazing individual. I was very blessed that I was born his son. I think God figured out, this kid, I got to give him somebody. Got to give this little. I need to put him with somebody that's going to watch out for his behind. So, and I thank God every day for it. So, but even talking about the work that I've done, I just follow his lead, and when you have a situation where you can do something for people, will you take advantage of it? During the American Rescue Plan, John, I was able to, the 10th Congressional District received $772 million in aid in 2020, and then 886 million the next year. And Newark received $350 million, and then the next year received $175 million in direct aid to Newark. And the other towns have naturally other numbers. Linden got 14 million. Jersey City got 279 million. And so, it was a great feat to get that done. And it was really all because of me. And, I told you the story, I believe, before. Lacey Clay went to Miss Pelosi and told her that, they might as well shut Missouri and New Jersey down because, the formula was for municipalities and counties over 500,000 people.
Right.
And I told her that you might as well forget New Jersey and Missouri. She's like, what do you mean, Donald? I said, because none of our states meet those requirements. And so Lacey Clay from Missouri, who was with me when we spoke to her, was in the same position in Missouri. And they recalculated the whole thing. And that was the result of our work.
But
New Jersey,
that's what I'm talking about too, right? Like
New Jersey got $10 billion, $10,230 million, $10,230 million for that American Rescue Plan.
And that's loaded. I mean, that's including our raggedy behind bridges that need to be rebuilt and redone.
No, that's just
that's my point, right? You're talking about right. Like what Congressman is talking about right now is the forgotten aid of 2 years ago, right? Like all the cities were about to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
Right. Like based on COVID, based on people not having that tax base. So all of these American cities were about to go bankrupt. That's like an untold story, right? And when it came to the literal American Rescue Plan, that the part that actually gave money to municipalities, we don't really, because no crisis happened, we really don't appreciate the way in which crisis was avoided. Notice that right now in our urban areas, we're not facing what traditionally will be like budget crunches, right? There was like, oh, we don't have money, massive budget cuts. We're not hearing that right now. We're not hearing that right now because the federal government flooded money to cities. But
here's what I was going. From where it's going and how it's actually being applied matters. Not only is it dealing with physical infrastructure, it's building up our community infrastructure. The stuff that the stuff that we're doing in Newark, trying to create this peace in the streets, and we're really building out a model that the whole country is looking at. We now can put some legs under that from some of these very same resources.
But Zaid, what I'm talking about is the American Rescue Plan wasn't even that. The stuff you're talking about, I believe, was in the infrastructure bill, right? Like
the IIJA,
right?
And
that's separate from this. I mean, this $10 billion was pandemic related.
Right.
IIJA is the infrastructure rescue plan. Well, the infrastructure bill that is going to do what you're talking about. It's already started, but this is a once in a lifetime, incredible. There's never been this much money applied at one time for other than when they created the interstate highway system. But this is an amazing time in the country, and I mean, if we don't,
and it's not the time to go backwards.
Right. And if we don't use this money and do it right, shame on us, because there won't be another opportunity where they're going to give out that much money at one time, to do the things that we need to do. So I'm just really proud of being able to play a part in that rescue plan. And
Like an important part.
I heard the governor say recently that because he had so much money left over that he was going to give these immigrant families some of that money. Have you all heard that?
Yeah, no, I didn't hear the governor mention that, but I'm glad he's doing it.
Yeah, he said he has all this money left over from COVID, and so he's gonna begin to distribute some of that money to some of these immigrant families.
Okay. Donald Payne, Newark, New Jersey, 07112. But yeah, no, it's an interesting time in this country's history, and I hope we can have these families in Newark and elsewhere benefit from it. So
I know we're getting ready to we only have about 4 minutes left. I'm just curious, right? Like it seems like from the way you talk about it, this was the toughest election campaign season for you. What is beside what you talked about before in terms of support that you got? What are some of the biggest takeaways that you have going into this going into the election?
What are some of the what now? I'm sorry.
Oh, like just what have you really? What is there anything unique that you learned from this particular experience in this tough election? I know you said that you learned how much support you had, but is there anything else that you learned, given that this is, as you described, the most competitive election that you had?
Really, that I need to speak up more and talk a bit more about the things that I have accomplished for my district and the people that are in the 10th district, and make sure that people understand better what I have delivered. I just been doing the work and trying to basically before the people express what I've done in terms of getting in terms of just letting my work speak for itself. I think I've learned that I need to speak up a little more on the things that I've accomplished, because a lot of times it appears that people, aren't really listening, so or know what I've done. So I need to do a better job in terms of allowing them to know beforehand what I had done or had not done. So and also appreciating the opportunity that that you give me every month to come on and interact with the people in the district to vocalize my concerns and their concerns in the halls of Congress, and just appreciate the opportunity that I'm given to share with our constituents what I'm doing. And so it's going to be a bit more about what I've been able to accomplish here. So thank you for that opportunity.
No, thank you always, man. Because we get a chance to talk about and actually learn about, right? A lot of the very intricate things that you do, right? Like in terms of just the relationship with people that you have, the ability to walk into Nancy Pelosi's office and have those conversations that actually can help the district. Just the minor detail that you talk about has actually been an education for me, and I'm sure everybody else as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think one of the things you should think about, Congressman, and I think what's really real is that after this election is over, some of what you've been doing is of course what you do here is important, but I think that as COVID winds down, maybe start visiting and taking Congress directly to some of these high schools and let them see and hear from what a congressman looks like and what a congressman really does on a day-to-day basis. I think that would be huge for some of these young people, right? Because, to really see you as you begin to talk about how what you've done really affects not only their lives, but how it affects the lives of the very people who are taking care of them, how that really works in Congress. I think that would be incredible. I can only think about what that would have been like for me in high school to actually say, wow, okay, so this is what Congress is. This is that thing I see on TV. And that guy right there is a part of that would be huge.
Absolutely.
Well, Congressman, I know we've come to the end of another week. Is there anything you want to leave us? Well, is there anything you want to leave us off with? And also, I just got a text that talked about East Orange City Hall being named for Donald Payne Sr.
Yeah, they had a really great program the other day where they have bestowed another great honor on my father and named the plaza there in front of City Hall Donald Payne Sr. International Plaza.
Okay.
And
I did not know that. I'm right in East Orange.
Yeah. It was
East Orange folks are very insular. That's the step for them.
Yeah. But really a true honor, and we were very humbled by it as usual. He would have been, that guy, he would have been like, wow, he doesn't deserve it, but I think he does. So, we were once again thankful to the people of East Orange and the administration there for such a wonderful honor.
Okay. All right, and so thank you so much for this week. I know you're going to get some rest, right? And you're going to get some rest. Take care of yourself because it's been a tough campaign, right? It's a tough campaign. That's so.
Very much.
And you could let everyone know when the election is and who to vote for, because I know that people are confused because there are 2 election dates in a row.
Right. Thank you, everybody, and exercise your right to vote. It's the only right that you are born with in this country, and so please exercise it. And the election day is Tuesday, June 7th, and you should make sure that you go out and vote, and vote for the candidate of your choice. So thank you for giving me this platform in order to get that message out. And I thank all of you brothers, and I wish Donna was here and sister for giving me this platform and the opportunity to talk to you every single month. What is going on? How long have you been doing this? Has it been this whole time since I've?
Maybe 12 years.
Ever since you've been in Congress, man.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true, right? It was like
ever
almost
since you've been in Congress.
Yeah.
And most folks don't know this. I don't even know if you know this, John, but he created the name of the show.
Oh.
I know most people may think it's me. You remember that, Congressman?
No, I didn't realize that.
Wow.
Well, okay, I'll steal it. I'll let that be. I'll let people think I did it then. When we were trying to think about a name, the Congressman said, all right, well, let's call it the Payne Report. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to give it to me, I'll take it. But because it was a dope name. I was like, whoa, that works. I don't even have to be creative with that.
And it's worked for you.
And think about it. That could be a T-shirt. It could be a hat, right? It rolls off, man.
Yeah.
But we've been doing it that long.
Get Roland Martin, get you a cable show.
Yeah. Yep. Ain't
yeah.
one thing about that, right?
Yeah.
And I want to say, Congressman, you've been committed to your show, and so for us to do this every week with you, man, has absolutely been a pleasure for us, man. And we wish you nothing but the best next week in the election, man.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate all of y'all. You don't know
Yep.
how much I do, and over the course of time, I've learned something from all of you, and I'm just proud to have I'm going to say Mr. Muhammad willing to put up with me for 12 years. And,
I haven't been here for 12 years, but the spirit's in the lyric. I heard it.
well, I had to convince Mr. Muhammad that I might be worth listening to, or everyone. I worked hard to earn that respect because he's a brother in the streets that is right down there with the people, and if I'm able to gain his respect, then that means I might
right where you at.
A little street cred. So I appreciate it. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you.
We need you right where you at.
All right. God bless.
Right on.
All right, so that's another week of All Politics Are Local, America's number one
Rhino
streaming show. So until next week.
Let me shout out 3 names real quick. Curtis Mayfield's birthday. We lost Muhammad Ali on this day. The Black Panther Party, we said farewell to Thomas Blood McCrary, the real blood, right? It's my mama's birthday.
All right.
And real quick, I wanted to show you this.
That's a classic. It's still around too.
And this is where we are right now.
That's the one.
That's the one, right?
That's the one. I have a whole series called The Battle of the Bullet Revisit for 2022 for the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee to help build a convention too, Ed. And we started on Sunday right after we heard about Buffalo.
Wow. And Rhino, we're back on, brother. The new party is coming back.
All right.
Keep me posted.
September.
All right.
New party. Yes, sir.
All right.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
All right.
A good show.